Good evening and welcome to the Plan Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee meeting. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from last week, the 13th of August. I will entertain a motion to accept with changes because I have some changes that I noticed.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. The very first change I have is that under the people in attendance, we missed Derek Horn, Assistant Town Administrator. So we need to include that. The second change I have is that the vote for the minutes should be 7-0-0, not 8-0-0, since Mr. Lawler was an alternate member from the Industrial Council. He did not vote unless Mr. Martz was absent. So that should be 7. And then the final change that I have is on the adjournment, the vote should be 8-0-0, not 9, because Mr. Schaefer had joined us by that time. Does anybody else have any changes or additions or deletions? No. With that, I will accept a motion to approve. All those in approval say aye.
Aye.
All those saying nay? Abstaining? I guess it passes unanimously. 8? Yes, 8, because Mr. Surratt is here. So since Mr. Surratt is here and he is the chair, would you care to take over, sir?
I haven't been here in a while, so I think you should just keep going.
Oh, okay. All right. If that's the way you wish it, I will be happy to do so.
Thank you.
One of the first things that I think I need to do, Mark, would you hand me that, please? I'm sorry to say that staff this evening, at 6:39 this evening, received an email saying the Goffstown Industrial Corporation respectfully withdraws from the Plan Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee. Tony March, GIC representative, and Michael Lawler, GIC alternate. So it is with deep regret that we accept their resignations. But I thought you needed to know this, so that has been passed along. Brian, do you have Brian on the line?
If you can just bear with me, I was missing my network plug for the telephone, so I'm going to dial his number right now. He's on the computer, but I just got to get him on the line. So,
am I in the way?
No,
nope.
He's way up in the corner.
Okay. There's one other piece of business that I will take care of. We have a gentleman in the audience tonight who uses an interpreter. I ask that please do not stand in front of her, because if you do, he is unable to follow along. Thank you.
Okay. Try that one more time. Hey, Brian. I'm getting a busy signal when I call the number. I've got you on the computer. We can see your face, but I'm not getting the number to be able to connect. Yep. 897 3000. Okay. I think it was 879 on the
How's
thing.
it feeling?
Wait a minute. Say it again. 773.
A couple metal pieces.
The number you have dialed.
773
You're not playing bad.
897 3000.
I'll take this week off. I'll take next week.
I'm not.
I've been biking, so.
Please enter your
Tony,
entry followed by the pound or hash sign.
Hey, Miss Coop. I'll talk to you about that later.
You entered 6, 7, 6, 1, 5, 5, 0, 1, 3. If this is correct, press 1. To reach or enable audio control, please enter your audio pin followed by the pound or hash sign. If you do not have a pin, just press pound or hash. You are the first caller and will be placed on hold until the next caller arrives.
I was in the selectmen's meeting last night. Sat in the back. Sat in the back.
You were there? I understand she's not here because she's in traffic.
You there, Brian?
My husband's over there.
I'm here.
Okay. We can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
Okay. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian Rose. Presentation?
Yes.
Should we do an introduction?
I think we've all been pretty much
Well,
introduced before, with the exception of Bill Surratt.
We should do that. Every meeting we should do it.
Okay. Rich?
Good evening, Dick Gamache, I live in Pinardville.
Cheryl Anderson, Community Representative from Pinardville.
Andrew Cataract, Goffstown Economic Development Council Representative.
Robert Schaefer, member at large.
Bill Surratt, I work in Pinardville, live in Grassmere.
Rosemary Garrettson, Pinardville Representative.
Gayla Breck, Recording Secretary.
Mark Lemay, Selectman's Rep.
John Heichel, Planning Board Rep.
And I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator for the town.
And Brian right on the phone.
Right. Brian Wright is our consultant for the project.
You wanted to do the presentation?
Yes. So I'm not sure if Greg Carson is here tonight.
He just
okay,
came
he
in.
just walked in. I actually wanted to start out with asking Greg to say a few words. Greg is a representative from HUD, and this grant project is a project that originally was funded through HUD. It did get, what happened is New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority asked for a grant from HUD and got it for $1 million in order to be able to help New Hampshire citizens, New Hampshire communities, in order to be able to revise their regulations in their cities and towns. And so this grant project was farmed out from New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority to any and all cities and towns that wanted to try to apply for the grant. We saw that as an opportunity to be able to look at the Pinardville area, since that Pinardville area has really not had any kind of direct focus in planning ever since the beginning of when we started having zoning in the town back in the 60s. And so really this is the first time that Pinardville has even seen any kind of in-depth look at how to plan the whole area. And I asked Greg to come tonight because out of all the concerns that we've heard from the community members, it seems like we're not getting past the fact that HUD is somehow involved in this project. And I'm hoping that he'll be able to answer any of the concerns, or at least speak to some of the concerns that the community members have been voicing, and that hopefully some of those concerns can be maybe dispelled, certainly if they are just misunderstood. So without further ado, I'd like to have Greg come up and just say what he's going to say.
Good evening, everybody. Just speaking from the microphone.
Yes,
Yes, please.
Thanks. As Mr. Rose said, I'm Greg Carson. I am actually the field office director, so I'm the senior authority here for HUD in New Hampshire. I manage the Manchester office, and we do a number of different things, from everything from Section 8 housing to community development block grants to doing insurance for even luxury apartment buildings downtown in Manchester, like Bridge and Elm Street, if you've seen Manchester Place. So HUD does a whole range of things that a lot of folks, some they do know, and some they don't know about. I've been to a lot of meetings like this over the last several months. I'm in a lot of different towns. I'm from Salem originally, but I've lived in Londonderry for the last almost 30 years, and been on planning boards and zoning boards myself, so I've actually sat on the other side of the table, so I really have a feel for how difficult sometimes some of these meetings can be. I'm here tonight to answer questions. I'm not here to try and influence people to decide one way or the other what to do or what not to do, to change your mind, to continue going on. That's all up here to the community. But what I did want to do is just take a couple of minutes and talk about some of the things I heard last evening when I sat in the back of the room for the selectmen's meeting, and some of the things I've read in the newspaper and that. And I think it may allay some fears of some folks, but it's certainly not going to make everybody feel confident that, all of a sudden there's, no reason to be objecting to a plan. On the positive side, I do want to say it's always great to see and hear people being involved in the town and the community, whether it's they're for something or protesting something the town's doing. The folks coming out to talk about their neighborhood and community, certainly, if nothing else, that's what these, this whole exercise is about, and gets people, involved. So that's an upside. So let me just start off with a couple of things. First of all, the town got a grant from New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and not the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. HUD did two grants just over a year ago, one for $3.7 million that went to the regional planning commissions, and $1.1 million that went to New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, in turn, decided to run a grant program to some of the cities and towns who wanted to actually become more involved with the planning or micro plans, or develop just certain parts of master plans, as opposed to the regional planning commissions, which are really looking at trying to connect all the cities and towns' master plans together. And that's what you applied for and got a grant for. HUD has no third-party contract relationship with the city of Goffstown in terms of this particular grant. I don't know if you've taken other money in community development block grants or home money for developments, or if you have senior housing or any of those things. So you may have other tentacles related with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, but not as a result of this particular grant. One thing we can't do is we can't come here and tell you how many houses to build and where to build them and what your zoning should be or anything like that. I mean, it's quite clearly unconstitutional to do those kind of things. The federal government doesn't come in and take land. We don't tell town meeting how to actually conduct business in their town. What we do is provide funding to have you do those kind of things yourself, because the citizens know better than everybody else what to do. You certainly don't need somebody in the federal government or somebody down in D.C. telling you exactly how to run your community. So when people are concerned that HUD's going to come in and mandate the building of low-income housing, that's just completely false. And there's no basis in reality for that whatsoever. And people will often refer to Westchester County, New York, and how HUD came in and is making them build all kinds of low-income housing, and we're forcing them to do that. I'm going to use this as the example of how only some information can actually be turned into something that scares people. Westchester County, New York, it's like any other big grantee from HUD, takes money from the federal government every year. One of the programs they do is community development block grants and home money, which is things to help support low-income housing. And as part of that process, they apply for a grant just as Goffstown did. And part of that grant is that they have to do two things. One, each time they do the grant, they have to do an assessment of impacts to fair housing. That's low-income housing, senior housing, housing for disabled, veterans housing, anything that has to do with minority relationship housing. And they have to do that assessment and write it all down, and then the other thing they have to do is they have to attest that they are not doing anything against the Fair Housing Act. That is, they're not doing zoning, they're not redlining like they do with mortgages, they're not putting all the low-income people in one section of town, or all the minority individuals in another section of town, and leaving all of the nice parts of town for 5-acre single-family homes. things that are not, that are against the law anyway under the Fair Housing Act. So Westchester each year signed and said, yep, we did the assessment, and we are not doing those things. Well, come to find out, actually, they were not doing the assessment, and they were actually doing zoning to keep people segregated in town. And a nonprofit corporation recognized that. They figured it out. And what they did was they filed a lawsuit called a key tam lawsuit. It's a kind of lawsuit where basically an individual or group, in this case a nonprofit, can basically stand in the shoes of the federal government and say, I've seen you defrauding the federal government. I'm taking you to court on behalf of the federal government, and we're going to seek damages. And if they win, they not only get the damages, but those damages are then trebled on top of that. So this small nonprofit did that. And they were clearly winning. They were clearly going to win. And the Justice Department stepped in and said, okay, as they're allowed to do, they're allowed to step in the shoes, back into the shoes of where the federal government should have been in the first place. And they took over the lawsuit, mostly because they didn't want a small nonprofit to be getting a few $100 million out of a particular suit that really wasn't going to benefit anybody at that point. And they worked with the judge, who in the case had determined that Westchester County had defrauded the taxpayers of the United States through the federal government. The county actually committed a crime. And the judge said, well, we're now going to rectify that, just as you would be if you went to court and you had a dispute with somebody and the judge decides how to mitigate the damages. And so the Justice Department obviously is not an expert in housing, and they asked HUD to assist them to work with the judge to determine what the resolution would be. And they worked out a plan, which included paying back about $50 million of money that they had actually, as I said, defrauded the federal government of. And instead of paying back the treble damages on top of that, they are supposed to actually do some other things, like to develop a zoning ordinance that is not exclusive to low-income minority people, to actually proactively work with developers and try and get developers in to actually rectify some of that activity. So that happened a couple of years ago. And lo and behold, they're still fighting that battle, because one thing that HUD can't do is tell Westchester County, you have to do X, Y, and Z. The court can tell them that, and right now Westchester County, they have a new set of people in office there, and they're fighting that battle right now again, because HUD has no authority to go in, like I said, and decide where housing is going to be, who's going to develop it, or how it's going to be developed. So the court is still working on that issue. But HUD, can't make Westchester County rectify the things that they did wrong. HUD can't say you're going to build 20,000 units of low-income housing. A court can do that after, like I said, the county had been found having defrauded the federal government. But that's the resolution. So now, how does that relate to Goffstown and Pinardville and that? It only relates to in that if you're not, as long as you're not defrauding the federal government, and I've seen the work that you've been doing, so it doesn't look like you're intentionally defrauding the federal government. There's no issue here at hand that you would have to worry about the federal government coming in and saying, we're going to do a lawsuit, and or some nonprofit's going to file a lawsuit. So, as the field office director here for HUD, I can't tell the planning board to, you now have to change your zoning ordinance to do X, Y, and Z because you took $50,000 from the federal government, and you really didn't even take it from us. You actually took it from another state agency. It just doesn't pass the straight face test. But because people get bits and pieces of that, and there are some folks out there who want to manipulate this story to make it sound worse than it is. If you don't know all the facts behind it, it does sound kind of onerous. But HUD isn't doing those kind of things. So I said I want to use that as the example. There's a lot of other stuff people are worried about, the contracts and things like that. There is nothing that in any of the agreements that are going to empower any federal agency to come in and rezone or dictate how you're going to, or how many units of low-income housing you're going to build. It just doesn't exist. So with that, I know that people have had a lot of questions about the grant, the process, and that. I'd be happy to answer anything, but what I would like to say is that you've gotten a lot of good work done. Obviously, there's some pushback, and hopefully there's some happy ground that your committee can work together with the selectmen and the planning board and the citizens to figure out and get some of this good work moved forward. But I hate to see it just kind of all come to a screeching stop because of some misinformation. So
I have a question for you, Mr.
Sure.
Carson. our contract, or actually the town's contract, is with the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority.
Yes.
What is their responsibility to HUD?
Their responsibility to HUD is to take the $1 million and use it to help cities and towns. And this is they came to us with this idea. I mean, with a sustainable community grant program, they came to us and said we would like $1 million so that we can award small grants to some of the cities and towns that are not going to get funded through the regional planning commissions directly, but have some more micro level planning that they'd like to do. Their responsibility to us is that they build they use the funds to actually get work done, that is develop plans, that they do it in accordance with federal regulations in terms of contracting, matches that have to be made, things along that line. But as long as during that process, that's the only responsibility they have to us. They don't have, if we come back, when we come back next year and audit them, we're going to say, what did you do with the $1 million? And they're going to take a stack of plans and show them to us and say, here's a stack of plans that we developed with these small communities. And, the result of all of those plans are some of them implemented new zoning ordinances, some of them, developed new parts of their town, some of them went and applied for other grants to get development with Department of Transportation, some of them just included it in their master plans, and they're now working with the Regional Planning Commission. But
there's no trickle down.
There's no, I will tell you this, there's no funding behind it to actually getting those plans implemented. So if that's what people are concerned about, that well is dry. There's no ongoing funding.
So in other words, our obligation under this grant is to come up with a plan.
Correct.
Following that so far.
Correct.
Whether we accept or reject that plan has nothing to do with.
Nothing at all. I mean, that is,
Nothing is going to come back to us and say you didn't implement this plan, so now you're going to have to pay a fine.
Let me explain this. Okay, there's two pieces here because I can't answer for the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, so I just want to make that clear. So you have an agreement with New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority to develop a plan, and I don't know. I mean, I took a quick look at the contract. It says you're going to do, develop a plan. You're going to work in the community. You're going to hold the meetings and put everything on paper and that. I believe it said something along the lines of that you would then go to your planning board, to have presented to them and see if maybe it would, go on to the citizens of the town next town meeting. A step process, or whatever. That's, those objectives are between you and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. I don't care if you do step A, B, and C as long as you have come up with a plan and, New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority can come back to me and say, here's something tangible. We developed Plan Pinardville. It doesn't matter to HUD whether the citizens of, Goffstown accept it or reject it.
So we won't have to pay any money at all once you come up with a plan.
You'll not have to pay anything to U.S.
We have satisfied.
You don't have to pay anything to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Okay. I said I cannot answer. I am not the attorney for New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, nor the director, and I don't speak for them. As long as you complete, whatever agreement you have, and however you decide to modify the agreement, whatever you negotiate, and that's all well and good. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority has to pass the straight-face test with HUD in a year from now when we audit this and say, in the case of Goffstown, there was $50,000 spent, just rough numbers, $50,000 spent, and they came up with a plan, and they came up with a proposed ordinance. And we're going to say, okay, fine, check that one off.
Well,
if we ever get to that level of detail.
so my problem is it says HUD's substantial involvement, that we do have deliverables. And it clearly states that you are going to be very involved in many aspects of what happens with those deliverables. So you are, in essence, you gave us the money, it funneled to us through NHHFA, but it actually starts from HUD, Thaddeus Winsteck signed this to start with. So it is essentially, you are behind it, and I venture to say, if you say to NHHFA, we want this done, they're going to do it. They're an arm of you.
No,
So,
they're
well-
separate agency whatsoever. We have U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has no control over
No authority.
New Hampshire. No authority. No, we can't. We can't
Well,
tell
they're
New Hampshire
answering to
Housing
you
Finance.
throughout this whole grant.
What New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority did was attach as an exhibit the grant application that they have and the agreement that they have with us, and said, that Goffstown would agree to do all these things.
Yeah.
Okay. But and I'm going to say this just putting my lawyer hat on because I'm a lawyer too, because New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and Goffstown decided on an agreement, whatever they put in the agreement doesn't contract you with HUD. I mean,
It certainly sounds like it does.
It
When I
may
read this,
sound like
I'm
it,
not an
but-
idiot,
but-
so I can read.
Okay, but
And it appears to clearly state that you can change the plans.
I'm telling you as a lawyer, there's no contract between the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the city of Goffstown in regards to this grant. Okay. We don't have an interest in what Pinardville and Goffstown, what the plan says, other than you actually use the money to do a plan. However you choose to execute that is completely up to you.
I looked through that same section, and I believe at the beginning it talks about if the performance is not there, then I would come in and get involved to then make happen what was supposed to be happen contractually between you and New
And
Hampshire.
I think
Housing Finance
I think as a lot of lawyers do, they take the easy way out, they just attach the document on the back and say you'll do all these things too. And, that's if Goffstown and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority have a disagreement on those terms, you have to work that out with them. But HUD is not coming to Goffstown looking to collect a bill.
No, I mean, in this agreement is between HUD and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. At the beginning, I believe it talks about if the performance and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority is not performing, that's who the agreement is
correct.
between, that then HUD may come in and have to help push it along because it's not.
If New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority does not perform on the grant that they applied to us for, okay, if they're not doing their work, we would come to New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and say, what are you doing with our money? And if we weren't satisfied with that, then we would work out that issue with them. Okay.
But it also says the municipality acknowledges and agrees, blah, 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 and all applicable obligations and requirements under HUD and the Office of Management and Budget. So we're also here agreeing to requirements under you.
They attach that to the agreement, and
And it says we agree to all this when we sign for the.
I understand. I understand.
So it's kind of a little bit of doublespeak, I think.
It is
Say
a
you're
lot
not.
of lawyer legalese, and the Code of Federal Regulation, which, by the way, if you've never seen before, is about that high in
I'm
micro
sure.
print.
I worked for lawyers, so yes,
Okay.
I know.
I'm telling you that HUD is not coming to Goffstown to either, say that you didn't do enough or, that we want our money back. Because, like I said, I can't go to court and sue Goffstown because I want my money back because I don't have a contract with Goffstown. I have a contract with the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, and they have one with you. It is a legal difference. It's a legal.
It's hair splitting.
It's only hair splitting in the fact that one creates an obligation, the other doesn't. Okay, I don't have I can't come to Goffstown and ask for my money back because I didn't give you any money.
No, you didn't.
New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, and you'd have to ask them if. And I think the city is actually asking New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority what would happen in X, Y, and Z if you stopped, didn't go forward. Would there be a request for money back? Things like that. I think the selectmen sent a letter off to them, from what I understand.
Well,
But,
all I know is what I read.
But I can tell you this: HUD is not coming to Goffstown, other than me coming tonight, or if you do ribbon cutting when you do whatever your plan is.
I just want to make a comment, though, and I appreciate Cheryl for bringing that up, and thank you, Greg, for coming to do this also. But when we're all gone and years are gone by and none of us are here to speak or to remember what was said tonight, all we have left are the words. And the words say what Cheryl's concern is. And
I'll
that's
give
the
you a
problem that
suggestion.
I think we have with
I'll
this.
give you a suggestion, because Wyndham had the same issues. And so what Wyndham did was they tasked the city attorney to ask if there's actually a contractual obligation between Wyndham and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as a result of the grant. And their very capable attorney, Bernie Campbell, wrote a letter back to him and said, no, there is not. It's very confusing, but at the end of the day, there is no legal contract between the town and HUD. Okay, there is a contract between the town and New Hampshire Housing Finance
But you
Authority.
can manipulate NHHFA. I mean, come on. It says right here, we agree to everything in this packet, and it says HUD's substantial involvement will include many, many things. And HUD's substantial involvement means HUD's involvement in everything.
And I'll explain one more thing too, just in terms of this. When these grants are written, they call them NOFAs, Notice of Fund
Yeah.
Availability. Okay?
Yeah.
These NOFAs are written, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars that are spent in these grant programs and that. And New Hampshire gets, what's left over at the end, like Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, we get kind of we don't get an allocation because we're not big enough, we don't have enough citizens, we don't have enough, low-income people, we don't have enough minority people, we don't have enough elderly people, et cetera, to get into the levels that you get block grants at. And so what happens is those contracts, it's the same contract for everybody. The notice of funds availability is the same for everybody. It's the same for New York City as it is for the National Regional Planning Commission.
I'm not arguing that, I'm sure it is. And each municipality is agreeing to everything in here.
There is quite an extensive amount of information there where we are contracting directly with Nashville Regional Planning Commission or New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, et cetera. So there's a substantial amount of information there, and it's because of, it's empowering the federal government to manage the grants, which, we all know there's a lot of money that's spent that's not managed well, and there are years of issues where people put in, well, we need one more thing, we need one more thing in the contract, we need one more thing in the contract, and so they become extremely onerous. And if you can certainly read into as much as you want or as little as you want in terms of those contracts, but those contracts are written for $100 million grant in New York City versus $1 million grant in New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, or $3.7 million for the.
It's not the money amount; it's just the smaller the town, the lesser the amount. I realize that. Obviously, that's logic, but it still is the same thing. We are binding ourselves to everything in here, and HUD is everywhere all over these documents.
You bound yourself to New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, which said you would do all of those things in there, and yes, you are on the hook for quite a bit with New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. If your relationship falls apart, I don't think it is, and I don't think it will. I mean, I think they're more than willing to work with you in terms of getting what plan you do develop. But
so you're saying if this hits the planning board level, the planning board says no, we don't accept it.
Just understand something. That contract was executed a couple months ago. Whenever you started the program.
A couple of months ago. This is August of 2012.
A year ago. I'm not sure when you actually executed, but the city of Goffstown's been on the hook since when that was approved and signed. I mean, so you've already agreed to all those things.
I understand that. I'm just asking you a question. If this does not pass muster with our local elected representatives, is someone, whether it be NHHFA or HUD or both of you in some way combined, one hiding behind the other?
It will not be HUD.
Or is it going to come back at us that now we're in some kind of violation of this agreement because we don't accept the plan? The town does not want this plan.
Each agreement that we do is the agreements that you have with the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority is geared towards your particular application. And you applied, you said you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Now, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, will you have an issue with New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority? Yes. Will New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority work something out with you? Certainly, I'm sure they do. They will. But as the director of the field office director here of HUD, you have a plan already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm happy that worked out. I saw a proposed ordinance. The selectmen, couldn't. I understand your planning board's elected.
Yes, they are.
So just as if, as the adage is, you can't bound, one town meeting can't bound the next year's town meeting. We always hear people say, well, I want 8-year moratorium on building, and they can sure vote that in next year. Of course, the next town meeting can, vote that back out again.
But I'm being specific to this very plan right there.
But I'm just saying, the fact that the planning board or the citizens of, Goffstown accept or not accept it, I mean, you can't contract that into an agreement. I mean,
that's what I'm asking you, because that's what I'm concerned with. If we do this plan, it gets the planning board and it gets voted down and it gets that's it, it's done.
So
There's nothing that's going to come back at us.
There's no fallback to come back.
That's what I'm asking you, because you said, first you say this is general, then you're saying it's
That's a
specific.
question for the New Hampshire Housing Finance.
That's a question for HUD.
Not for Mr. Carson.
It is, okay, and I will, go out on a limb here, whatever, but I don't think that, New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, which is a great agency, by the way, nationwide, I mean, they're well respected. I don't think at any moment in time did they believe that by developing this contract that it was a guarantee that the planning board an elected planning board would approve it, and then the citizens in town would approve it. I mean, that would be ridiculous to assume that, that those two things, you could contract for those two things. I mean, if you could, I think that would be highly illegal, guaranteeing the result. I think the result that, that's being measured
government has been known to strong arm.
I think the thing that's being measured is, was a plan developed, was a proposed ordinance developed, and so far I've seen both of those things. I don't know how anybody could be disappointed and, I don't know how they can legally come back and say, I'm sorry, well, since your elected planning board said no, we want our money back.
Because there is a reference to litigation in here, that's why I'm concerned. I can't seem to find it right now, but there is a reference to litigation in here.
There's probably a reference to a reference to a reference in the CFR someplace that says,
Well, this specifically
else.
says litigation.
Yeah.
Those are things, so I'm just
John,
concerned.
you
It's
had
actually,
something?
it's actually something, though, that even in the beginning stages of this grant project, that New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority stated to all of the cities and towns that were applying for this grant, is that, they couldn't guarantee that in the end, any city and town would adopt any of these regulations, and they didn't expect the cities and towns to agree to make sure that something got adopted. It's just you can't guess on that as to what the voters are going to say or what the town planning boards and
That's what I'm
Or
getting
the
at. So
selectmen are
our
gonna say.
obligation, because reading this, you're not sure, our obligation is to just create a plan as a committee. We're not a governing board. We can't vote this into the town. So our
Right.
obligation under this, you're an attorney, you're from NHHFA, so you would know, I would assume,
I don't know anything about that.
in general. Our obligation is to create the plan and propose it to the planning board. If they so choose to say no, that's it. No one can come back at us and say, well, you didn't follow through to this level or this level and try to cause us any trouble.
As I understand, having spoken to the executive director of New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, that is the agreement that the town and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority has.
Okay.
And
Okay, that's what I'm
John?
getting at.
In the event, thank you, Madam Chair, in the event that we don't use this plan and we end up ending the whole program, does the plan and the studies and everything that we've done and accumulated, does that stay as our property? Can we use it?
Right, yeah, I heard that last night about intellectual property.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just asking that.
And I reread that paragraph in there just because
Yeah.
I used to work for a company that created several hundred U.S. patents, including one that you probably all know about. But the intellectual property rights piece in there is basically saying that, and it's more or less that a lot of folks will be hiring a consultant to do this work. Okay? And what New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority is saying that neither the town nor the consultant can create intellectual property that can be protected. That is, they can't copyright the plan. They can't, file. I mean, if you came up with some new dynamic way of a spoke and hub traffic intersection to replace the rotary down, going down on Mass Road or whatever, that you can't say, oh, well, that's the property of Goffstown or that's the property of the consultant, and therefore, you have to pay us to do it. What that basically says is no intellectual property will be created that is protected, that for any of the work that was done here. That means that plan is completely in the public domain. Okay, that means if I'm in Londonderry and I want to copy your plan word for word, I can, and neither Goffstown nor the consultant can object to that in any way whatsoever. It's copyright. Like I said, I couldn't imagine a thing that you come up with a patent. It's copyright, and it's all in the public domain. That means nobody can protect it, either the town or the consultant or even New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. There's no intellectual property created in it. So,
Thank you.
it's
Rob?
public.
Some questions about apartment complexes have come up, and I want to talk to you, or question you about the process for developing apartment complexes. Does HUD develop apartment complexes, and how does the HUD process work in terms of funding or having apartment complexes or development produced? Does HUD actually do the work to get them developed and passed and promoted?
Here's something that basically answers that question. Other than properties that we foreclosed on in the Federal Housing Administration, FHA insurance, HUD owns no public housing whatsoever. We don't build public housing, we don't own public housing, and we don't manage public housing.
Right.
Okay? There are housing authorities in cities and towns, like there's a Manchester Housing Authority. They build public housing and they manage public housing. We pay them to do those kind of activities. We pay New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority to do those kind of activities. HUD does not build public housing whatsoever.
Well, you fund it. I mean,
It's
technical word that you don't build it, but
no,
you
it's
fund
not
it.
technical. We are basically a bank when it comes to developing property. And we actually have an FHA insurance, the same thing that, you can get for your homeowner's insurance, you can get for, building, high-end apartments or, low-income housing, et cetera. So you can get insurance from HUD on the loans that you get from private banks or developers. We actually have grants that actually help get public housing off the ground for developers, for primarily nonprofit, but even for-profit developers that cities and towns can use. It's called home funds. We actually have a program that we've not used here, and we're not big enough here in New Hampshire that to do that, which is called Hope 6, to tear down the old, Cavite green brick apartment, complexes, and tear those down and develop, more modern and more compatible housing and that. But we don't own or develop housing. So, how does low-income housing get developed? Either a nonprofit or for-profit developer works in their city and town, goes through the planning process, goes to the zoning board if they need variances. They go to a bank and they get funding, and the bank and the housing developer come to us and say, we'd like insurance on this loan, so the loan costs are lower. They may work with the city and say, okay, the city's got a piece of land down the street. We're going to apply to the state of New Hampshire through CDFA to get some funding to, acquire the property or to pay for a cleanup of the site or something like that. But we don't actually do any of the development at all. We only approve plans for insurance, just as your bank would apply, approve the development of your house. We don't build low-income housing at all.
And have you ever overruled a planning board or a zoning board, or come in and thrown your weight around to try to get something passed?
That would be unconstitutional. We cannot come in and overrule the planning board, okay? We can't come in, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development cannot come in and tell you how to zone or how, what to approve on a plan or not approve on a plan. There's no authority to do that. I mean, that's just not the way the federal government or the Constitution works.
And if the SMART code is passed, actually made it through, would it provide any avenues for U.S. Department of HUD to come in and promote anything, push developments that, or be?
No, I mean, we don't promote development, we don't, I mean, like I said, it's nonprofit or for-profit developers that do the work, and if it complies with your particular zoning ordinance and your building code, then, it gets built. I mean,
They would have to apply to HUD for the financing.
They would apply. They would actually go and work with banks, and the banks come to us and
Right.
ask for insurance on the financing. Just like I said, you go to a bank, and when you're buying a piece of property,
So it's, you are approached, not you do the approach.
Right. We don't go out searching for property. So that would be a good place to put in, low-income housing, or like I said, we don't just do, and we don't finance just low-income housing. Like I said, we finance upscale buildings too. And
What's the percentage? How much of the upscale versus low
I
income? I mean, I hear more HUD associated with low income than I do upscale housing.
Well, first of all, do you know what low-income housing is? You know what the median income, to qualify for low-income housing, do you know how much you need to make here in New Hampshire?
I think it's less than, it's fairly low. I know it's less than at least 14.7. I know it's less than that, way less than that. My mother was in it, but I
the
don't
median
recall
income in New
exactly.
Hampshire is $76,000 a year. So if you're
Well-
making, you need to get into traditional low-income, not very low-income, low-income housing, okay, $56,000 a year. Very low income is 39.7, I think. I'd have to go back and look, because it goes from city to city, or the metropolitan service areas, the MSAs. But so, first of all, low-income housing is not low-income housing. You think of people that are, living in boxed housing in Chicago or something. I mean, this is, in New Hampshire, it's a completely different description.
It's based on
And
your
it's-
income.
It's based on
And
your
it's
income.
not anything that's on our plate right now, so let's get off that topic.
So, but I'm just saying, HUD's not coming to say, build a low-income housing development in Goffstown, because you got an open space,
Well,
over by the.
it's not part of this plan, so it's off topic, so.
No,
let
but
us-
it was a legitimate question. Do we do that?
It's a legitimate
We don't do that.
question,
So-
and you've covered it, so that's it. Does anybody else on the committee have any questions or comments for Mr. Carson? Would it be possible for you to stick around until the public comment
Sure.
time, so
Absolutely.
that if the public has any questions of you,
I'd be happy to
you'll
stick
be
around.
available to answer?
Yep.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job.
Now, I believe,
Okay.
Mark, you had some comments to make as a representative of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen met last night. We had a discussion regarding the Plan of Pinardville Smart Code, what's coming forward for the town. Debate, if you probably saw it on TV, was pretty intense amongst the Board of Selectmen. We have some pretty strong views, and I, as the rep for this committee, was looking for some guidance and some information to share with you tonight. We kind of went through the plan, we looked at the plan. There's one thing that I would like to basically reiterate and make sure that we all understand. When the motion was made by John Heichel last week, he had some bulleted points. And one of the motions was, if you go down to number 2, it says, any zoning amendments proposed or adopted in reliance on this plan should be limited in the scope and reach to A, the Mass Road corridor from Manchester Line 114, and B, west side of Daniel Plummer Road corridor from Mass Road to the Bedford line. In each other case, the partials within approximately 150 feet of the center line of the said roads of the focus area. Let's read that, focus that, and let's work on that area. Let's not broaden this plan to any other parts of Pinardville. Let's stay on that focused area of Pinardville is what we're looking for. We want to work with that corridor only, and we don't want to add anything else to it. We're concerned about this plan bringing in density. We've heard density mentioned in here several times. The density of Pinardville is pretty good already. How much more density can we bring in? How much more density are we going to be forced with? The Economic Development Committee was mentioned as well. With the Economic Development Committee, along with their recommendations, yes, probably might come some density, and it may have some effect to this plan as well. So we talked about that. We talked about the zoning. One of the big things that we also found is when you look at this plan, there's probably only one picture of this Goffstown plan in the picture. All the pictures we have are from other parts of the country, other parts of the area. I think language, communications, terminology, technology, however you want to call it, I think played a very important role in here as well. I think if we would have been on our language, put our pictures in here, and put our information in here, it probably would have made things a lot better. We would also like to see that anything that says residential or housing, leave the residential housing the way it is. Don't disturb it. Leave it the way it is. We're talking about industrial parts of the plan. We want to make sure that we work on the industrial part as we were once thought that this was going to be. And we, the Board of Selectmen, want to see what this plan is going to do. We'd like to see it play out. We want to see exactly how it comes out. There was good points made tonight that it could go as far as the planning board and stop. It could make it as far as town meeting and stop. But I think there's been a lot of negativity that's been put into the plan. I think the plan has been derailed somewhat. Seeing what has come across here tonight with the Goffstown Industrial Corp., they were a big supporter. I didn't talk to Tony Martz. I didn't talk to anybody yet. We haven't had time for communications. But for them to drop out of this plan, I think that's a vital blow to this system as well. I thought we were working hand in hand, but to see this, I have questions that I have to ask, and I think the board will be asking questions as well. So let's try to stay focused. Let's try to work on what our goals are here. If we are lucky enough to come up with something, fine. If we decide to stop where we're at, we stop where we're at. We'll work that out as time goes on. And that was pretty much it. I will bring back to the board what we talk about tonight, and we'll see what happens from here. My my selectman, one of the other selectmen's, Nick is with me and is in the audience tonight. I think, did I cover everything, Nick? I just want to make sure that I've covered everything we talked about, just so that we're good. Yep.
Hi, good evening. Nick Campusano, Board of Selectmen. Just some of the concerns that we discussed last night. When this project first came before the board, our concern, and I wasn't on the board at the time, but the concern was that we wanted to look at the county land, the corridor, the Mass Road corridor, and identify those parcels that could be developed commercially to shift the tax burden off of the residents and more onto the commercial side, because as you know, Goffstown is very heavily weighted property tax-wise to residents. One of our concerns with the plan is that in those identified areas, it is heavily, I don't want to say heavily weighted, but there's a lot in there about developing live-work residences, row houses. When you look at some of the Ice House district, there's talk of increasing density and having residential. Every time we take a parcel, commercial parcel of property, and we add a piece of residential to that, we dilute the ability for that tax income to offset residential taxes. As we know, cost of services, schools, community services are very high on the residential side. So at best, sometimes those developments are a break even. And even if they do come out on the positive side, tax flow wise, we're still diluting the potential. So our concern is that this plan increases that residential aspect in those very limited commercial parcels that we have in town. Additionally, there is quite a bit of reference to increasing the density in certain areas like the Pinard Center. And the question keeps coming up, why? Why do we want to develop a parcel to its complete fullest extent, have no side yards, things front directly up to the front line? So those are some of the concerns, and primarily we looked at this and said, if you're going to limit the zoning to just that corridor, and this plan is going to be the guiding vision for the future, then the plan should only address that corridor. Yes. And we shouldn't be having things in here that address other areas, because 5 years from now, someone's going to pull this plan up and say, you know what, well, we need to set some zoning for the college area or these other residential areas, because it's in our plan. So if this committee has decided that that should be the focus, then this plan should focus on that. And that's what we had discussed last evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Rosemary.
You done? Okay. Do we have anything further for the presentation, or can we move on to the changes and comments that have been received?
I'd like to just say a few things about what's happened so far with the project. So, you know, in the beginning of this project, we all kind of sat together as a committee and discussed, okay, here's what the goal of the project is. You know, we want to, you know, make something good of Pinardville. We want to put some focus into Pinardville that we haven't had before. And, you know, my idea at least was that if we include all of Pinardville in the beginning, that at least gives us the opportunity to whittle down and decide if we want something less than that in the end. And obviously that's what the committee has done with the motion last week, and you know, I'm totally fine with that. I think what we do need to remember, though, is that the residences are still a part of Pinardville, and that we are still planning Pinardville, even though we may just be looking at the commercial corridors. We're still planning essentially what people see of Pinardville. You know, everybody that comes to Pinardville sees the commercial corridors. So if we can remember that that's what's important, then, you know, we can I think still come up with a good plan. Now, one of the things that I recall as you know, in the early stages of this project, before even the Planapalooza, our consultant had done some interviews with our planning board members to kind of get to know them and to kind of get a feel for, who they were working with. One of the questions that I thought was strange but very relevant, especially I see it more and more, is they asked them, when your friends come to visit you, where do you take them? And the response often was, well, I take them to maybe Portsmouth or the Seacoast or someplace, where you can kind of go and have a nice time and enjoy ourselves. Some of them said, I take them to the Goffstown Village. There's some nice things in Goffstown Village to do. But no one said, I take them to Pinardville. And Pinardville really, over the last, I don't know how long, has, I think, been considered the place where you go and get your errands done, the place where you kind of go to get just your things that you like, dry cleaning and your grocery shopping and your car washed. But it hasn't been the place where you take your friends, the destination place where we want it to be. And it's going to be that Mass Road corridor that we're talking about, where if we can come up with, I think, a plan and some good regulations to create some character there, then we can still make this place a destination for where our friends will want to be brought, and we'll be able to enjoy going there with our friends. That's what I was hoping for from the beginning of this project, and I still hope that we can get there, because I think Pinardville deserves that. I think we all deserve that, and so I just wanted to at least say that that's been kind of my focus all along. It's never been to try to push any regulations on people. It's never been to do anything malicious or take anyone's property. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that. To me, I'm here. I got hired as the town planner to be able to come in and help the community do something, and I saw an opportunity to be able to help the community, and that's what I'm trying to do. And we hired our consultant because we saw a very qualified firm that we didn't see in the other applicants for this project. And so, the work that they've done, I think, is exceptional. They've been able to provide, great concepts as to how we could look toward the future. And not every idea is the perfect idea, but what they did provide was an out-of-the-box thought that we could look at. And so I'm really grateful to them for the work that they've done and the time that they've put in. And I know that our grant isn't half as much as what really should have been paid to them for, the amount of work that has been done on this. So I think, we need to recognize that too. So with that, I just want to go briefly over what's recently changed. So I think it's already sort of been stated.
Could I just piggyback off of what you said before we change gears, if that's okay?
Yes, go ahead.
No, I think from the Economic Development Council standpoint, this opportunity came to us about a year ago, and we have been struggling with where to promote economic development in Goffstown. I mean, that's our whole purpose, is to create an environment where businesses are going to come to Goffstown, people are going to come to shop in Goffstown and live, work, play, and enjoy Goffstown. And we had been struggling, when you look at Goffstown, as to where to focus our energies. And we've tried to do, on the website, there's a little business directory, and we've done meet and greets where new businesses, when they come to town, we go out and shake their hands and give them information about the town. And when this opportunity came around, we thought it was a great opportunity to focus on an area in town that really we hadn't focused on. We could have applied for downtown, the village, or we've done a lot on, I wouldn't say a lot, but we've put a lot of recommendations in for the 114 from Pinardville into town, where we've approached business owners and having it rezoned as, I think it's CIZ, what is it, CIFZ zoning that encourages development. So this seemed like a really nice opportunity to focus kind of micro in an area where we have businesses already, and how to look at that and say, how do we make this even better and more business-friendly and more of a destination, is what you're saying. And so, I mean, that's, I think, what our purpose is in supporting this, is that, we want to see, Goffstown grow and grow the right way. And, we saw this as an opportunity to get some professional help and discuss it, whatever the outcome might be, that the citizens have one, input and see where it goes. So, thank you.
Can I add to that?
Certainly.
I think a lot of our concerns that have come up has been more the funding being from HUD. And I'm concerned that we're about to let a great opportunity go down here. TPUDC has their hand on the pulse of what's going on in the country in terms of communities that are growing and thriving and are what people want. Part of that is the live-work communities. Part of that is density in the terms of being able to live near where you want to shop, or live where you do your errands so you can walk out your door and go take care of them. That is what's coming in terms of what people want, not because it's being imposed on people. It's because the younger generation wants to be close to where they live, not necessarily get in a car and go drive to that place. And so I think what TPUDC is proposing is mostly along the corridor. In order to dovetail with that, they need to incorporate the residential area in terms of make a cohesive whole to the code, so that there's not confusion between having to go to one code for one area and another code for another area. But we're getting quite a product from them that does, as Brian said, cost a lot more than this. And I'm interested in these things, and I study them around the country and read case studies on them. And that's why I thought it was a great opportunity for this community to be able to take this on, because the communities in the country that are doing well have embraced these kind of ideals. Portsmouth is embracing some of them, and they're doing quite well. Nashua is embracing them, and they're starting to have more activity along their commercial area. So if we kind of take in bits and pieces of it and piecemeal this, or not embrace what they're proposing with our own input, of course, I think we're missing out on a huge opportunity that we have for this area that I think could be quite spectacular. And I hate to see this thing go down because of the concern of actually how it's funded, but not actually reading the plan and reading what's being proposed and seeing that it is addressing a lot of the concerns that have been brought up and specific concerns. So I hope some of those things are taken into consideration.
Dick?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the people in Pinardville have a lot of character. They had it when they came here. I've been here 50 years in the town. Everybody waves to each other. Everyone says hi. There's no problem. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that if you ever get on 114 Mass Road in the morning, where do people work? They work out of town. Pinardville is no more than sometimes I consider a bedroom community. They live here and they work some other place. Okay? You can't expand on the land that we don't have. You only got so much land in Pinardville, period. You can't go poof and now we're going to have another 50 acres here or 10 acres. You can't. You got to utilize your space that you have for the benefit of the community and for the town. So, changing an ordinance, zoning ordinance, it may be all right for just a certain part of Mass Road for the businesses, but again, you got to leave all the residents alone.
And I think we've heard that loud and... Excuse me. You'll have your opportunity in a little while, please. I think we've heard that loud and clear through all the meetings here as well as through the Board of Selectmen. And we just heard from 2 members of the Board of Selectmen that also said that they do not want this plan to sit on the residential back. They want the plan to be on the commercial and industrial side. So with that in mind, have you received any changes other than the ones that you sent us on Wednesday?
I have, and I wanted to kind of briefly reiterate what's happened since last week. We put out a final plan over a month ago to the community, or almost over a month ago, to the community with all the changes that this committee had worked on and submitted, and our consultants did work to basically put the comments back all together, and we had done quite a bit of that work because it was in that PDF comment format.
Right.
And, so they were able to basically incorporate all those comments into the document. Staff worked on it a little bit after they provided what they could. We put in basically the information in the appendices of the document. So any of the documentation and data that's in that, we compiled that, Derek and I. And so that was done. We also, made just a few minor adjustments and corrections where we still saw them needed. But then that plan sat out there for about a month until last week, when we did have the committee made that motion to include this portion, and it's actually up on the screen there, of the 6 bullet points that John brought up and that was voted on by the committee to basically make some changes in the direction of the project, and so those have been incorporated into this last draft, and that's been disseminated to you all as committee members, and I'm not sure, we still may have to get this draft up on the website, but we actually may make some more changes tonight based on comments from the community, so it may be appropriate to also wait on that. But that's pretty much everything that's happened up till now. Now, I received trying to find my pile of comments. You know what? I put them up on this on the computer here, so I'm just going to have to probably read them from this. I received really only a couple people's comments that were comments such as change this or change that within the document. And so, I've got the comments here from Paula Bedard that basically she took several pages out of the document and she did similar to what we all did as a committee. She redlined things saying, thank you. She redlined it and just said, I think this could be changed to such and such. And, I'm just going to quickly scroll through this just so you can kind of see what she did. But what I've done is, so she's got different comments saying, certain things like, show some bicyclists in the images, talk about Laurier Street as a connection to the rail trail and should be improved to better accommodate pedestrian and bike traffic. So she went through this whole document and came up with different pages worth of comments that could be implemented into the document. What I've done is, in this version of the document that I'm looking at, is I've taken and done exactly what we did the last time around and incorporated that using the PDF comment program tools. And so you'll be able to see any and all comments that she did. Now, I also included a few comments from Mark Warden, who's a planning board member. He had sent me some comments as well that were recommending actual changes to the document. Out of all the comments and letters and emails and people on Facebook that I got, those 2 people recommended changes to the document. The rest of them were I don't like this because, but they didn't say, change this. So, if it's okay, I'd like to just go through each of those comments that I've put on here, and,
Can I ask you just one question?
Yeah.
If she put something about changing the picture, would that mean that Brian Wright would have to take and actually put something in a picture? Is that even possible for him to do at this point? I know you had said that the illustrators are gone.
yeah,
So that would cost us, I presume.
I don't know how much we could do to change the pictures. I've said it previously in lots of
Yeah, that
other
it's-
meeters that
yeah.
changing those pictures is gonna be difficult.
Okay, I
don't know-
thought so, but
I
I
don't know
just
how
thought
well
I'd
we
ask
could do
if
that.
that was something. I
Yeah.
don't know that it really matters, but I just thought since that was a
Yeah.
couple of the suggestions.
I could draw a little bike in there.
That's what I was thinking. That's about as good as like a stick figure on a bike, yeah. It wouldn't, maybe it'd look like a bike if I did it, but I'm not guaranteeing.
So if I can just kind of scroll through this and mention the comments that have been provided. So on this first page, these comments are from Mark Warden, actually.
In the forward?
In the first part, he mentions that in the forward, the Pinardville community is a densely developed amalgam of smaller homes and businesses developed as an outgrowth of Manchester's early 20th century sprawl. He just puts a comment on there saying this is a loaded word with a negative connotation. I don't know if that really, I don't know if the committee wants to change anything there or not, but I know sprawl is a fairly well-known word, and I don't know how you determine what sprawl is for Pinardville's sake, but
I mean, I would ask, is it an untrue statement?
yeah,
I would believe that that's true, but
yeah. Whether it's negative or not, it may still be true. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
It was probably Manchester's sprawl
Exactly.
100 years ago.
that's what it,
Well, and that's what it says, is an
Exactly.
outgrowth of Manchester's early 20th century sprawl.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's saying that it's Manchester's sprawl, not Goffstown's.
Right.
Well, I know what he's referring to as,
So
it's
it's-
used a lot of times now by city planners, it's a negative thing, that it's suburban
Preventing sprawl.
is considered sprawl. It takes up too much land for too few people, too much resources used up for too little people involved. So yeah, if you read the different city planning books, sprawl is considered a negative term. That's, I think, what he's meaning. It's viewed that way in that
so could you change it
arena. So in this plan, it could be viewed that way.
should change it to growth or something like that?
I'm not sure what you would say. It could, maybe that would be a better thing than growth.
Well,
Well,
they
it says
already,
outgrowth.
yeah, you can't do that. I don't know.
So if the committee's okay with the word,
It's a word.
we could
People
leave it
use
alone.
Personally, I don't have any problem with it. Like Andy said, it's probably an accurate,
An outgrowth of early 20th century Manchester. Manchester's
Another comment from Mark saying this is a nonsensical sentence, the one that's highlighted. Basically says later development of strip plazas and shopping centers have added traffic issues and congestion, which puts at risk the Pinardville community's ability to control or moderate growth and maintain affordable residential alternatives for the community. I think he was getting at that the traffic issues and congestion don't put at risk the community's ability to do things. It's maybe
Yeah, that's true, it doesn't.
something else.
Why don't you just take it right
And
out?
it just could be reworded maybe or something.
Grammatically
but-
incorrect.
Right.
I don't think there's a verb in it.
So just throw one in.
Well,
I think that's what the issue is.
Well, could you just take it out?
You could put congestion
Does it really, it's,
has put, instead of which puts.
I mean, again, I don't think it's, do you think it's not a true statement that,
I don't think
This-
we're at risk. I think we can control our growth regardless, whether there's some shopping centers, they're all leaving.
right?
So, I mean, it's not.
here's a verb, have added. So it
Yeah,
does have a
it is
verb.
it's a proper sentence, but I
But-
don't think it puts us at risk of controlling our growth or having affordable housing. I think that's just, the market is controlled nationally. I would just take it out.
Right, yeah.
Anybody have any problems with taking that sentence out?
I don't think it's not a true statement. I mean, that's the whole point of this plan, is to look at that issue, isn't it? To look at the development of the plazas and shopping centers that have added traffic issues to Pinardville. Isn't that the whole purpose of looking at this? And if you take that out, isn't that like taking out the whole purpose of this plan?
No, because it doesn't
Oh.
put at risk affordable residential alternatives, it doesn't.
That's what I was just gonna say, is I don't think that
So maybe
it's
we take
putting
out,
anything at risk.
maybe we take out the
Just take
second
it-
half, which says, which
Starting with
puts at
which,
risk
take all
the
that out, yeah.
Pinardville community's ability to control or moderate growth and maintain affordable residential.
Yeah, take from the which on
Alternatives.
out, I would say.
So just say later development of strip
Which is
plazas
gone.
and shopping centers have added traffic issues and congestion,
That's all.
period.
Period.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I would change the word sprawl to expansion. I think it's less,
That's a good word.
I think expansion's much better than
Yep.
sprawl.
I agree.
You're welcome.
It was, he whispered it in my ear, I just said it.
Well, I just heard him say you're welcome. That's why we're a committee. We work together. At least that's what we're supposed to do.
So change to expansion?
Yes.
Yeah, take sprawl out and put expansion in.
All right. This one, he makes a comment, let's see.
I can't even read it from here.
The words sustainable and sustainability are used 8 times and 3 times respectively without proper definition or common universal understanding. I suggest striking these words entirely from the document. In fact, the attempted definition on page 71 uses a recursive definition. I can jump to 71 so that you can see what that definition is. Let's see.
Page 71.
So what it is number 9. I'll scroll up just a tiny bit here. Oops. Number 9 says sustainable design is the philosophy of designing physical objects, the built environment, and services to comply with the principles of social, economic, and ecological sustainability. And then the definition of sustainability is sort of stated right after that. Sustainability is the capacity to endure. I think that is the generally understood definition of sustainability. So I don't know that it really is recursive. Maybe the first sentence is recursive because it says something about ecological sustainability, and then you don't really understand what sustainability is unless you see what the word is after that, which,
Okay,
so
hold
that's
on.
in there. So, in my opinion, that is defining it, but I guess I'll leave that up to you guys to decide.
Sustainable. It is a subjective word. I mean, what I consider sustainable, you might not. So I think I see his point. Even the definition is, I mean, it's to me, it's a subjective term. What is sustainable? What to me is sustainable might not be what is sustainable to John. So I think that's what he's trying to say. Is it is somewhat. I don't know what else you can say there, but I just think that's his point.
I mean, the whole project was sort of started
housing.
to do a sustainable community plan. And so I think, if we can't figure out how to define that, then we've got to.
Well, yeah, it is the ability to endure, but I think that in this context, sometimes it's used for other purposes.
Is there anything else on page 2? Because if not, or on the,
Yeah.
I do have a question, I'm just noticing.
because I have something
Oh, okay.
that I need to address on page 2, under the forward.
Okay. There is another thing, but if you want to jump in, feel free.
Item number 2, promote equitable affording housing.
Yep.
Let's get rid of it.
Here's a question, I guess, that I have about changing anything in this, because this is just information that was copied from the livability principles that were developed as part of a different project. So this is copied right out of another project that developed these 6 livability principles, and that's what this whole grant project was based on. And when we put our application in, we answered certain, I think two of those criteria we spoke to in our application, saying, this is how we feel like we'll, try to address this in this project. So changing the language in this, I don't know if we should. If we want to take the language out, we don't have to state that we are doing it in this plan based on this, because it's already being done that way anyway. But if you feel uncomfortable about the language that's in there, we can take it out. And that's actually what this other comment is from Mark Warden.
I agree with you,
Rosemary?
Rosemary. And in the way that, the fear and the thought that just because we have commercial doesn't mean that we won't have multiple housing units going up in that commercial district. And I think if what you were leading to, I would agree with that somehow we need to make sure that we have, that we limit, if not don't allow, and I'm really not sure where to go with that one, but either limit or don't allow the type of subsidized housing that goes in the commercial district. If we can do that, and to remove that's not a bad idea. And because I'm concerned, and I hear from a lot of folks out there that I'm talking to, that they are concerned that just because we're focusing on the commercial industrial corridor, doesn't necessarily mean that can't be loaded up with residential multifamily housing that's going to be built, and it's going to add an awful lot to our town expenses, and it's going to produce much less in property taxes that everyone else is going to have to chip in for. So that is, I think, in essence, a major concern and hurdle that we have to get over to get this commercial.
Can I jump in on this? I did some research in New Hampshire Workforce Housing Council, and workforce housing means the broad range of owners and rented houses meeting the needs of families. But workforce housing can include, but is not limited to, subsidized and affordable housing. So whatever you can build, it could go down to subsidized and correct.
Well, my concern is that throughout this entire document, and I went through it line by line after last Tuesday's meeting, and the motion that was made and passed, I went through it line by line, and I found an awful lot, which I didn't notice the first time through, of references to workforce and mixed housing. And that is not what that motion addresses.
Right.
That motion says no residential. Well, residential includes workforce and mixed housing.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it belongs here if we're going to focus in strictly on the commercial and industrial portion of the corridor.
Right.
So, Brian, I'm sorry, but I stand by my comment that should be deleted.
I totally understand that, and what I would recommend, if you feel that strongly that this shouldn't be in there, then we take out all of those, because I don't want to necessarily change what the 6 livability principles are. Those are somebody else's 6 livability principles, and that's how this project was sort of derived, and all of the project applications that went through were supposed to address those 6 livability principles.
I'm fine with taking it all out.
Why number 1?
I don't know that it really makes a difference, though, because when we did our grant application, we based our grant application on those 6 livability principles. So whether we have it in this or not, it's still somehow embedded into the whole.
That's one of my issues with when I was speaking about the grant to Mr. Carson, was we did agree in our grant application to actually do that. But to create a plan that incorporates those principles. And here we are again at a point where it's telling us to do something that we don't want to do.
And it's not saying that we have to do every single thing within each one of those deals. It's just we try to, work towards meeting sustainability, and those are the 6 principles of sustainability that they came up with, that basically they think overarch what
Andy?
sustainability is.
I was just saying, I agree with Brian that,
They're actually principles of livability.
since this is someone else's idea, I wouldn't recommend editing that and leaving it, but you could either remove it or you could change the plan Pinardville, and get rid of the Partnership for Sustainable Communities. Maybe that's a way of leaving some of this, but removing what we don't like. The plan Pinardville committee established livability principles, and these are ours.
Rosemary?
So
Well,
it's just another thought.
I think Rosemary's right, because a lot of the zoning came out of this, and it's all mixed-use zoning all on that corridor, which does not necessarily promote commercial. So if you have this in there, and they want to put that in the corridor, and the corridor then becomes mixed-use, because you can put, that's how you get the housing in there.
Mark?
And
I would suggest removing number 2 and re-bullet the numbers to 1, 3 to 2, and just renumber them so that there was now 5 bullets instead of 6 bullets.
And change the paragraph that says establish 6 to establish 5. Either that or put the whole thing in quotes.
That's what I would say. It's quoted language. It's not.
Well, but it doesn't say that it's quoted language.
Well,
So if it were in quotes, then it means it's not coming from the committee.
if you look at
We're lifting it from someplace else.
If you
But
look
I
at- if you
I
look
don't
at
like that particular item.
especially
the
when
first sentence says the Partnership for Sustainable Communities established these 6 livability. So it's not us. It's not
It's not
HUD,
us,
it's
but
not New
it's
Hampshire
them,
Housing.
and they don't know.
They established
who them
these
are.
these
That's the
these
question.
6 livability principles.
But it's-
If we want to put that in quotes and say that this is quoted from them, that's fine. Or if we want to just not quote any of the thing that they put in, that's fine. But I wouldn't suggest changing what they did.
I have it says that act as the foundation of this project, so we're saying that is one of our foundational stones in this project in that previous sentence. So I would make a motion that we take out number 2, change that to 5 livability principles that are the foundation of this project. That's,
Instead of all of them.
Madam Chair, could I make a
No.
point of order?
No, sir, you may
Why?
not. Because this is a committee meeting, this is the committee discussing.
Well, Madam Chair, 8 o'clock, you promised, or in the paper, it says, public comment, and here you are on page 2 of 43 pages. We're going to be here until midnight, and the public wants to speak, and I do. I'm
And
just
you will
saying,
have
Madam
you
Chair.
will have your opportunity, Mr. Burt, but the committee needs to do its work first. So please bear with us, thank you. Mark?
Rosemary, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes?
Motion to remove number 2 from this paragraph and re-bullet the numbers from 1 to 5.
And change the
And-
change the 6th livability to 5?
Correct.
And I'll second
We
that.
can't do that. I'm sorry, but I don't think we can do that. Honestly, I think if you're going to remove one, remove all of them.
No, you just said 2 minutes ago we didn't have to remove all of them. We could remove that, I thought.
No, that's not what I was saying. I was saying if you're going to remove one of them, don't quote any of them, because those are 6 principles that stay together. They're from somebody else. We can't just say, there's now 5.
no, wait a minute. Are you talking about these guys, the land use?
No, that's our current master plan.
Could you say 5 of the 6 principles?
Because it says.
Would that be a way of editing it? Because I agree, if you're gonna, you're almost like changing someone else's idea, and I don't know if that's a good thing to do.
I wouldn't
because in the
suggest-
future, if someone starts quoting us, we've just misinformed everybody.
Now,
Well, we don't want to promote equitable, affordable housing. The people have spoken. We are probably, well, we're the ones that are going to decide on this.
Sure.
I don't think we agree with number 2.
Yeah.
I don't think people on this committee.
We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second it so we can talk about it.
Oh, it's already been
Except
seconded.
when we talk about.
So, do we have any more discussion on the motion?
Yes,
Can I-
Brian's concerned about our statement, the Partnership for Sustainable Communities, et cetera, right? Because we're saying this is what they say. Is that what you're saying? Can we change that sentence to say the committee or whatever established 5 livability principles, et cetera? Or can we say these 5 livability principles act as the foundation for this project?
Well, here's a suggestion that I'd like to just throw out there. When we did our application for the grant, we used 2 of those. And I believe one of them was enhance economic competitiveness, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other one may have been number 1, provide more transportation choices. I may be wrong, but if you'd like, I can go back to the application and find that, and we can say something like, we supported, or we said in our application that we would work towards these 2 livability principles, and instead of choosing all 6, we can choose, and I don't believe the equitable affordable housing was one of them. So if you want, we can try to do it that way. That would make more sense, and we could just say 2 of the 6 livability principles, these are the 2 that we selected that we would work toward, and that's it.
Yeah, I have it. This is the app here. It says the promotion of traditional settlement patterns was 1, and development, design, and community and economic vitality was another. Is this what you're talking about? This is the grant application. Did you want to see it? I got this from Derek, so that's what this. I don't know which ones those are, but I think.
Community and economic vitality. Is that one in there?
Could that be the one you're talking about, number 3?
That sounds like number 3, the competitiveness.
Economic development opportunities, employment, cultural heritage, education. And the
Yeah.
other one was promotion of traditional settlement patterns and development design.
Support existing communities? Is that what you, nope, that's mixed-use development, that's not it.
I mean, these don't even really match up.
No, they
I don't know
don't.
why.
Why don't we just change it then to what that says?
Make a suggestion, take out all 6 and make a quick paragraph at the beginning that
From there?
references the Partner for Sustainable Communities livable principles for a basis for this, but not necessarily
Not
have all
inclusive.
6.
Well,
You
why
could
don't we just
reference
take what it says in the grant?
that
So
organization.
what I put in our application was, we feel that our application specifically applies to each of the New Hampshire livability principles, but wish to highlight the 2 best fitting principles more specifically. They are the promotion of traditional settlement patterns and the development design and community and economic vitality.
So why not just put a sentence that states that second part of that sentence somehow in here? I don't know.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Do you want to make an amendment to the motion?
I'll make an amendment that we quote what it says in the grant application.
Do we have a second to the amendment? Do we have any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor?
For the grant application, this is going to be worded for the grant application. remove all
From the
six.
application, yeah, from that little paragraph.
Do we have any further discussion on the amendment?
2 seconds, please, to read this, or 1 minute.
This is where I was reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. Housing choices. Okay.
If there's no further discussion on the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Do you have a second?
Yes, Dick and I. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Sounds like it's unanimous.
Now, can I say something in relation to that change? I think we have to look at that sentence that starts with the purpose of the project, and I think it would have to end with renewal of the community.
Which sentence are you talking about, Cheryl?
I think it's the purpose of the project, I think it's the third sentence down in that paragraph, which led to the creation of this plan.
We're talking about the first paragraph.
I think that needs to end with renewal of the community as a whole, because the rest of it refers to what we're now taking out.
Okay, so you propose that it says instead,
That the sentence ends at renewal of the community as a whole, period, and the rest of that sentence disappears. Because that's relating to what we just removed. on the
Okay,
thing.
so we're eliminating from through implementation,
To the end of the sentence.
okay? Anybody have any?
Agree with that.
I don't hear any naysayers, so I guess that's,
Are we gonna leave the last sentence, the ultimate goal of this plan? Or are you saying take that one out too?
No, I don't think there's anything problem with that.
No.
Okay, so just that sentence.
Yeah, just
Yep.
that,
Okay.
yeah, that refers to what we just took out.
okay?
Got it.
Are we finished with this page?
Okay, I think the last one really referred to that whole section of comments, 1 through 6. So if we're going to change that whole thing, then I don't know that we need to really go through it.
Okay.
So that was from Mark Warden as well.
Moving on to the acknowledgements page, I noticed a couple of typos regarding people's names that need to be fixed.
Okay.
Under the Plan Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee, Jesse Lynn Tetro, it should be Tetro, it's Tetro. And William Furlong with a G at the end.
Be permitted to talk.
Oh, yeah, William Furlong.
Madam Moderator,
But didn't he resign?
when will
No,
the
he did not.
taxpayers be permitted?
Did you get that?
No, I missed what you said.
Bill Furlong
You forgot
has a
the
G
G
on
on
the
it.
end of his name.
You've gotta be kidding me. This is crazy, come on.
Rosemary, I know I believe it says 8 o'clock, the public's invited to speak. If this committee is going to discuss this document, would we be allowed to have the public? Could we have the public?
Yes, I just wanted to get these two pages taken care of, because the one is the forward that tells our direction, and the second is the one that has people's names in it. So at this point, yes, I will cut off our discussion to listen to the public, and then we will go back to our discussion and incorporate any public comment.
Thank you,
Now,
Madam Chair.
with that in mind, there are some rules for the public comment, and they are as follows. You must come up to the front table. You must give your name and your address. Each speaker will have no more than 5 minutes to speak, because there are a lot of you, and if you all want to speak, we'll be here until midnight. Comments will only be on the plan. There will be no comments regarding zoning, because we have not yet discussed zoning. If the comments go off topic, I'll stop you. The first instance that I hear of name-calling or maligning of any committee member, staff person, or consultant, you will be shut down immediately. This committee has been polite, it has been civil, it has been courteous and respectful, and we expect that you will afford us the same. So with that being said, who is the first who would like to speak? Mark, would you put the lights back on, please?
Dana Benner, 12 Joffrey Street.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to read just a statement from my wife real quick. It's
Certainly.
an apology. Last night at the selectmen's meeting, she kind of went off the deep end. And so she wrote this apology to be read. She wanted it to be public.
Certainly, go ahead.
Okay, it says, I, Gayton Benner, want to apologize to the Board of Selectmen for being rude last night. It usually is not in my nature to be rude. However, at this Plan Pinardville is a proposal that would destroy our neighborhoods, and all of the worries and stress has taken its toll on me. Again, that's why she's not here tonight, by the way. I apologize for being rude and not being patient, and I'm sorry for being angry. So my wife is probably the most giving person that I know. She's probably the strongest woman that I know. She will give anything for this town. all of her anger has come up because she's worried about Pinardville and she's worried about this town. She does not mean any disrespect to any particular person. Sometimes it may come across that way. Sometimes she stepped on people's toes. But if you asked her for the shirt off her back, she would give it to you. We moved here 30 years ago because of the character, and that term has come up so many times in this. It's unbelievable. Pinardville is full of character. Pinardville's character is its people. It's not a building. It's not a building with certain size windows, 2 feet from the road. It's none of that. That's not character. You can have the nicest building in the world, but you can have a jerk living inside of it. Pinardville is character, and it is our people. She has been fighting for that. She's not fighting for just our residential lot. She's not fighting just for our street. She's fighting for our community. And I got to commend her for that. Now, it's been brought up that we want to try to make Pinardville a community where people want to go to. In the 30 years I've lived here, Pinardville has never been a tourist destination. You look in the AAA books, Pinardville is never mentioned. We are as it's been mentioned here before, a sleeper community. We're a bedroom community. We've got our Mast Road is our industrial section, and that should not change. Our yards should not change. The residential and housing should never have been a part of this. What we need to do is build up businesses in here, encourage businesses to come here, and to cherish the businesses that we do have here. We shouldn't put a burden on the businesses that are here. We should make it better for new businesses to come in. The way the plan reads, we're going to look like the Stepford Wives. Everybody's going to look the same. Everybody's house is going to be exactly the same. The businesses are going to be exactly the same. It's going to be something that we're not. We need to get rid of that wording that mentions housing, and that's been brought up before, and I'm glad it has been brought up. And I also, and this will be the very last one that we submit, because we're not going to do these anymore, but I've got a petition that I'm going to give to Brian at the end to sign in as part of the official record, regarding some of this stuff, some, issues that we had signed off by people. But that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Anybody else? Come on down, as they say on Let's Make a Deal.
Excuse me, I'm getting old.
Join the crew.
See right here.
It won't take me long. I've been in Goffstown.
Name, sir?
Gerald Aubin.
And address?
12 Holly Street.
Thank you.
I've been in Goffstown for 55 years. I moved to Goffstown for a reason. I got married. I lived on the west side. It was crowded. And I wanted a place where we could bring our children up the way we chose. We moved to Pinardville. We had 6 children. We brought them all up. They were all well established. They're all married. And probably the best thing I ever did was move to Pinardville, because that was their environment. I look at the way Pinardville developed. It's marvelous. It's not just good. It developed as a community should develop. I walk down the street, I go down the next block, everybody's polite, everybody enjoys where they're living, This is amazing. Now I go to good communities, you know, like Bedford is a good community. It's still not Pinardville. And we want to change it. I mean, are we idiots? You know what I say? Take this whole thing and shove it somewhere. Because we don't need HUD. We don't need, what's the other one there? No, New Hampshire housing. We don't need anybody. We'll make our decisions. The people that have been here I've been here 55 years. I look at Dick, how many, 40 years, Dick?
If he's a day.
Do you ever live anywhere else?
No.
No, that's what I'm talking about. And we're going to get somebody else to come in and tell us how we should move Pinardville. No, we're not going to do it. I say, let's get rid of this, and let's keep doing things like we were doing it before. And you see the people, this is the kind of people you have in Pinardville. These people will see Pinardville through anybody, through any hardship or anything. And I say, let's not change Pinardville, let's get rid of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Frank Piacentini. I live on Pinard Street.
Excuse me, sir, for the records, would you spell your name, please?
I can't. I did Piacentini.
Thank you.
It took me a long time to learn that.
I'm sure it did.
I was going to say, I can't spell it. I'm like, what?
There's a lot of information here. And by the way, before I get started, you people just do a great job. You work very hard, and I think you're all sincere in your efforts. I came to the last meeting on the 13th, I think it was, and I picked all these documents up and maps and what have you. And in my opinion, it's just too much of it. Too much detail, too much conflagrations. It took me an hour to find Pinard Street on one of the maps. That's how hard it was. Anyway, after I kept going through it, I finally did find Pinard Street, and I happen to live next door to Mr. Cody. And I read some of the literature, and it says it's not going to upset or disturb the residents of Pinardville. And yet I look at Pinard Street and where Cody's place is, and I looked at Laurier Street, or Laurier Street?
Laurier. Laurier
Street is gone. It's being rerouted from a new place, from a new direction, and there's shrubbery and some stuff put in there. And I noticed it blocks off Mr. Cody's parking lot. And I said, geez, he's got to be upset with that, and he probably is. But then I noticed that I thought about it. I said, well, geez, how are they going to get into that parking lot? And I noticed there's a little driveway between Cody's and my house. And there's only room for one car to get through. And I'm saying, well, Jesus, how are people going to get in and out of there? And again, you're not going to disturb the residents, but yet I'm disturbed by this. And then I look in the back, and I see a shaded area, which looks to me like a new street. And it looks like it's right where my garage is. So I'm saying, things start coming to mind like eminent domain. Am I going to lose my garage? I mean, what's happening here? I was happy 3 months ago, and now I learned about this Pinardville replan, and, I'm affected by it. And I really don't like what I see. Now, that gentleman in the blue shirt I couldn't hear you really well, but I think you hit the nail on the head to focus on one area.
Correct.
To put a proposal together so that you can look at it, work it, develop it, change it, approve it or disapprove it, whatever. But at least you have something to look at. And that's what I'm saying here, is you should come up at least more than one proposal. I look at this, I don't like it, but that's only my opinion. So I mean, maybe if I had something else to look at, I'll keep an open mind. But there's a couple of things. I don't want to be disturbed at 5 Pinard Street. I don't want people going through that driveway that's never been used. Now it has to be used. And I don't want to lose my garage in the back there. And I don't know how that's going to happen. Maybe I'm going to lose it through eminent domain or whatever. But whoever put this together gave very little thought to that. And I'm saying I don't like it. Now, I want to go on record as saying I don't like it and I want it changed. Now, it may change, it may not change, but at least I want to be on record as saying I disapprove of this layout. So that's basically all I have to say. And geez, cut down on the paperwork. Gee. And maps. And label the streets on the maps. It took me, like I say, an hour to find where I live. So anyway, that's all I have.
Sir, what's your name again?
Frank Piacentini.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, please.
This man here.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Duffy, and I've been, let me just get my notes here. I've been a resident of town for almost 30 years. 25 of those years, I've actually been involved in land use issues in the town. I've served 18 years on the planning board, currently serving on the zoning board, chaired planning board, served on CIP, served on several master plan committees. I've been watching all of this and keeping quiet, frustrated as I've been watching it from home. So I got in the car at 7:30 and decided to come down here and say something. I'm just nervous. I don't know why. I know all of you. I understand the frustration that's going on by the residents of the community, especially since they've looked at actual, maps of their streets and how they feel that these changes may affect them in the future. I was first involved in the town back in 1989. Bill probably remembers, with the incinerator issue, which was very close to my house, and that's how I got involved in all of this in the beginning. So I completely understand the frustration that they're feeling. However, I have, in the 20-something years that I've been doing this, I have never witnessed some people being somewhat rude, and it kind of offends me. I've been watching the television. I've been watching some of your meetings, not all of them, and I've heard people say some not so nice words. My television is on with a 4-year-old in the house, and so I'm somewhat taken back by the whole thing. It's kind of become, a town government against the residents kind of thing, and it's gotten really ugly, and it really bothers me as a resident of this community. I was listening to the Girard at Large radio station this morning, only to listen to the planned Pinardville issues. And I heard that they've been attacking some board members personally. I think that is so wrong. This morning they mentioned Mr. Martz, and a resident now is questioning the legality of his business and whether he can have his attorney business in his home, which, I just think it's gotten beyond what's fair here. You people have put in a great deal of work, and I applaud you for that. I know you've been sitting here for hours and hours, and you've been so patient listening to everyone. The Board of Selectmen meeting last night, I was able to catch the tail end of it when I got home from work. And again, they just sit there over and over, and they're hearing the same things over and over and over. And I think you all get that the residents of Pinardville don't want their properties affected. I think you got it. I don't think you have to hear it again. I haven't had time to completely read through this plan, just the plan itself we're talking about tonight. But I did try to take a quick look at it today while I was at work. And I saw some great things in here. They're trying to provide an access management plan along the Mass Road corridor. They're talking about some changes to the parking requirements. The requirements that we have now are very restrictive. The businesses have to provide an overabundance of parking as if it was the day before Thanksgiving. So there's recommendations in there to change that, which would help the businesses. They recommended possibly doing a Main Street program for Pinardville. They talked about public transportation and working with the MTA, which would be wonderful. The senior center. And there's all kinds of great ideas in this plan. And I think if we could just all take a step back, take a deep breath, take a week off and forget that this exists and come back to the table with, possibly this same group and add a few others that are very concerned and work through it instead of, last night I was hearing at the selectmen's meeting, throw the plan away, abolish the committee. And I just think that's such the wrong thing to do, because you can't I think this is the saying, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And what have you accomplished if that's what you do, is just throw everything away? There's some great ideas in here that you can run with.
Excuse me. She has the floor right now.
But everyone needs to take a step back and breathe. You should all go take a yoga class or something together, because the tension with this whole thing is so high right now. It needs to come down. And everybody yelling at each other and bickering back and forth is not helping anything at all. So I would encourage that this plan continue to be worked on. I know that it's going to the planning board at some point in time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but the planning board will take a look at it. There's no drop deadline that the planning board bring it to the voters this March. It could come next March.
No, we do have to propose.
You do have to bring it. You have to bring.
Oh.
You don't have to bring it to the voters, though.
It was suggested that a plan be, the way that the grant agreement is that we're supposed to have been done everything by June of next year, which means we have to get it on the ballot for this year if we want something to be adopted.
But that's through the grant. There's no reason why you can't put a subcommittee together and continue.
If it gets
an abbreviated
process. If it gets denied or tabled by our board at this point in time, and we want to pick it up later on another time, we can always do that.
And the plan is not what goes before the voters. The plan only goes to the planning board.
Exactly. I've seen, when I was a member of the planning board, we met in this room, and there used to be a plan hanging in here for several years about the village. And I think Steve Griffin, our former planner, put it together, and it was a village plan, and it looked exactly like the plan that the gentleman just had in his hand, the little boxes and the roads and everything. And I used to look at that plan. I think it had a lot of one-way streets, which I know they're talking about again, which I think is crazy. But the plan was on that wall for years, and it was just like, I hate that plan. I hate that plan. It never comes to be. It becomes part of the master plan. If anybody knows anything about planning, it goes to the master plan, the planning board adopts the master plan, and then from there you work on creating the ordinances. I'm sure all of you know that. So I know it's a scary thing, and people think, oh my God, this is going to happen to me tomorrow. It's not. It's nothing to be afraid of. This is how we get to where we need to go eventually. And I'll wrap this up. When I was a member of the planning board, time after time, people would come in here, if supermarkets were coming in or whatever it was at the time, and they would say, the residents would say, why does this always have to come into Pinardville? Just stick everything in Pinardville. You're always throwing everything into Pinardville. And this was finally a chance to take a look at the Mass Road corridor through Pinardville and say, how can we make improvements, as we've done along Main Street, and make it be a more attractive place? Not trying to attract, what's the word, not residents, visitors, not, you know what I mean, tourists. Not trying to attract tourists, but just trying to make it look nicer for everyone who comes through and who lives there. And you can't be afraid of planning. I know people are afraid of change, but there are really good things in here that could be implemented if everyone stopped fighting with each other. And I really hope that that happens. I'd be more than glad to help out with this if you need another hand. Thank you. This is what I mean. This is exactly what I'm talking about. It's got to stop.
And your 5 minutes are up, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Anybody else?
I'm using an interpreter tonight. I'm Norman LaFond. I live on Mast Road at the corner of Hank Street and Mast Road, so I'm sure all of you know where I'm talking about. I've been there for 20 years, and when I purchased the property, required a lot of renovations, and last year we did some landscaping, did a lot of work on the property. It cost me about $4,000, and I think it looks very nice. People compliment me on what a good job we did. So, and that was fine until I saw the plan Pinardville, and it talked about 2012. Also, when I try to watch the public hearings, they're not captioned. None of the events are captioned, so generally when I try to participate, even though I have requested closed captioning, I can't hear the radio, I don't know what's going on in the community. None of this was familiar to me. I didn't even know this was going on for a very long time until I received, let me just find it here. Someone left this on my property. I guess they knocked on the door, I wasn't home, and they put it in my front door. So when I looked at this, it was all new to me, and it said, say no to Plan Pinardville. And I thought, what is this? And so, you know, you could lose your property rights. It goes on and on. It was very alarming, and I hit the roof because a lot of this stuff is bull. Sorry to say, but really. I have no idea what some of this is about. And I think it's very unfair for deaf people living in the community who can't hear, who can't participate in what's going on the radio, who is not familiar with the comments. And all I do is I come home and I find this in my front door. So I was very angry. And I asked people in my neighborhood about what this was all about. Like you, I've been on many boards. I'm on the board for the Northeast Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I'm the vice chair of that board, so I'm familiar with how boards work. It's not as if, but just because I'm deaf, I can't participate. Deaf people can do anything but hear. And I came to this meeting and I, wanting to find out more information and have more clear information. I would like to come up with some agreements if I can call someone to get some specifics about what's going on to make sure that I have a full understanding. And I don't want my property to be impacted. That's my very strong concern. But I think that we don't have specific information. I don't. I'd like to get it from you. I'd like to call you directly, Brian. I have considered whether or not I was going to, stay in Pinardville for a long time. I mean, this is my investment. This is my retirement. If there's eminent domain that takes over my property, what happens to my future? What happens to the value of my property? That's a decision that's unacceptable. So I want you all to think about that, please. Thank you for understanding.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your attention.
Is there anybody else?
Madam Chair, fine committee members, I am Representative John Burt. I live at 7 Bay Street in Pinardville.
Thank you.
Do you want me to repeat that, or did they pick it up?
No,
I think we got that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to stay positive, but I just want to say one thing. I am very disheartened with the lack of respect when Mr. Aubin stood up and asked a question. That gentleman's been here 53 years, ran a business, and, Mrs. Duffy was correct, that we need to show respect to everybody. And, the lack of respect that he received really hurts, bothers me. But to move on, again, I am here to ask you, please, you guys can do it tonight. Please kill this plan, Pinardville. We don't want it. It's bad. Everything that we want to do that you guys are discussing, we can do it without HUD or the New Hampshire Housing, whatever you want to call it. We can. We don't need them. We can do it ourselves. So I just ask you, please do the right thing, because bottom line, we will kill this in March if it goes forward. And if it's going to divide the town. It really will. As I said many times, do not get in bed with the government. The government is not a nice place right now. We need to refix that at some point. For example, and I know I've been corrected last night about the $17,000 fine per day from the EPA. I'm being told, which I think is not 100% accurate, but I think we got in bed with the government, and now that we can be fined $17,000 a day.
It's off topic, Mr. Burt.
It is. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I also spoke last night about the Heichel Amendment, and I commend John for attempting to do this, but bottom line, I see it as not working. And the reason I can see it not working is because in the contract, you can write anything you want, but the way I'm reading it, and many others are reading it, that HUD can alter the plan due to change in conditions. So they can change whatever we write. So we can put no eminent domain. But bottom line, they can change it to say, yeah, we can. We'll take this by eminent domain. And then also, again, the HUD is the tiebreaker in the final decision. That is not a good spot to be in. Many businesses do not want this. I've been going around to the businesses in Pinardville, and they do not want this. I can't find one resident until tonight. Two people prior to me is the only person I've ever heard support this thing, other than a few board members. Again, we can do everything here, on our own. We don't need them. I did have a few questions, and I just want to throw them out for Mr. Carson, but, I want to relay them to you because, I want you to think about them before the vote. Mr. Carson stated that, HUD will not be the bad guy, and, they can't enforce or take by eminent domain or anything else. Well, that's partially probably true. But they also have rules. And if we sign onto this, yes, HUD will not be doing it. The courts will, because we'll break the rule. So that is what will happen. So he is correct. HUD won't come down and beat us over the head with a stick. But the courts will, if we don't do exactly what the contract says. In the contract, it says they can change it at any time.
Speed it up, Mr. Burt. Your time is almost up.
Sounds good to me. And I appreciate your time. And again, I just ask you to please kill this because on September 10th, I am trying to secure a place in Pinardville, and we are going to have a planned Pinardville uncensored, and we're going to have both sides of the story. And it'll be in the newspaper and everywhere else. I just want to throw that out, but if you kill it tonight, you know what? You'll save me a lot of work. So I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name's Norm LaValle. I've been a Goffstown resident for, everybody says Pinardville, but I mean, we're all Goffstown residents, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. I've been a Goffstown resident for 25 years. My grandfather was a Goffstown resident for about 65 years. I've got some concerns and comments about this. For one, comment one, squash this thing now. Squash it. All right? I'm glad to see at least we got a couple of people here from Pinardville on the board, because the first thing that came to mind when I came here was taxation without representation. And, you know, I mean, that's an ugly thing that we fought a whole revolution over, you know. Let's not go down there. Has anybody done an impact study on what this is going to cause to Pinardville? All these housing developments and all these businesses. Has anybody done anything about that? Because I'm real curious about that. I mean, that's kind of sticking right out at me. You know, the lady that was up here before, I think was right. You know, she was saying that, you know, well, you know, put it in Pinardville, and that's exactly it. That's what it seems like it's been since I've been here for 25 years. Is, yeah, we need that, but we don't want it in our neighborhood. Let's put it in Pinardville. We want some low-income housing. Oh, geez, I don't want it on Terrell Hill. I don't want it on Tibbetts Hill. I don't want it on 13. I don't want it on 114. Hey, let's put it in Pinardville. We're all members of this community, but it seems like Pinardville seems to get the brunt of all the BS. Let's see, what else do I have here? I'm sorry, my notes are scattered. We talked, the police have been, my wife is driving my wife crazy. All the break-ins in Pinardville, the car break-ins, the home break-ins. Over the last 10 years, it's increased. Why? Oh, geez, could it be? Because, I mean, it's no fault of Pinardville, it's no fault of Goffstown, but we got a whole crapload of low-income housing down the road. Could that have a factor in this? Oh, let's see, maybe. I own a property that's about 150 feet from Mass Road, okay? You guys want to take everything and say, oh, well, it's a Mass Road corridor. Well, it's a house right by my house, and that's how I wanted it. That's why I moved to Pinardville. And, geez, if it's 150 feet, that guy, that woman who's like 88 years old is going to sell her property to some developer, and he's going to put a business there. All of a sudden, I got a great neighbor. Oh, that's awesome to wake up to on a Saturday or Sunday morning, right? I feel over the years, I started feeling claustrophobic in Pinardville. There's too much going on. There's too much development. There's too much being pushed into Pinardville. Why? Has anybody here? I live on a dead-end street, which is fine with me. I wanted to live on a dead-end street because I had 4 little kids when me and my wife were younger, and I like the idea of living on a dead-end street. Unfortunately, there's still people that drive up that street that are doing 30, 35. Okay? If we put those streets through, it's going to be an increase in traffic volume, and those people are going to go even faster up that street. Now, I still have a young daughter at home, and I still have a granddaughter at home.
and I'm afraid that something horrible is going to happen to them because because of these connecting streets and the possibility of somebody getting hurt by a car. Has anybody here ever tried to take a left off of Mass Road first thing in the morning? On a Saturday morning? There's too much traffic. I mean, some of this stuff can be solved, but this isn't the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. And as far as that goes, what kind of business are you people looking for here? What kind of businesses are you looking to move in? Some more low-wage jobs? We've got enough of those in Pinardville. We've got 5 gas stations. We've got half a dozen restaurants. Do we want more of that down in Pinardville? We want another grocery store that the kids might make $7 an hour? Or do we want businesses that are going to actually thrive and actually make people money? What are we looking for? What are you looking for?
Your time is almost up, Mr. Lavalley.
I'm working on it. Last couple of things. It shouldn't be Pinardville, Palooza. It shouldn't be Pinardville at all. It should be Goffstown, okay? This is Goffstown. It's not Pinardville. Why are we so strict on the idea that it's Pinardville, okay? All of Goffstown should be in the mix, not just Pinardville. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Camera. All right. Hi, my name is Chris Matthews. I lived at 54 Moose Club Park Road. It's quite a mouthful. Looking around the room, I think I'm a relative newcomer to Pinardville. I'm 28 years old now. I bought my first house in Pinardville when I was 24.
Good for you.
Why would a 24-year-old kid buy a house, single bachelor buy a house in Pinardville? To give some backstory, my previous place was an apartment in Manchester, Hanover and Elm, right by the Palace Theater. And it was great being within walking distance of so many things. But then when night came, I just couldn't sleep. The sounds were incredible. Motorcycles going by, every hour of the night, and one time, 3 a.m., bagpipes walked by. I heard bagpipes outside of my apartment. It was every few months, my parking lot, I couldn't get out of my parking lot because there was a road race or something and every egress was blocked off. I like the bedroom community of Goffstown. I like it a lot. I like that we can work in Manchester or surrounding communities and come home and enjoy the serenity of Goffstown. And Plan Pinardville changes the deal. It changes what I signed up for. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Our secretary has something she would like to say.
Do you want me to go over there? Do you want me
Please.
to go over
Who's going to take notes on what she's saying?
She has them written down.
I wrote it. I actually submitted it to Brian.
Oh, okay.
But this way I can cut and paste into the minutes.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I was just joking, really. I know you're the secretary, so you would know what you said.
Okay. My name is Gail Lebrecht, and I live on Crestwood Lane in Goffstown. And first I want to thank Brian Rose and Derek Horn for initiating Plan Pinardville and for finding the consultants and for all the work they did and that they put into this. And I want to thank you, the committee, for the time that you've put into it as well. I know it's often a thankless job when you work in and for the public sector, whether it's a paid or a volunteer position. And I appreciate all the work and time that you've all put into this. My home's not in Pinardville, but as the gentleman said earlier, we're all Goffstown. I'm impacted by what happens in Goffstown as well as the residents more local to Pinardville. I'm a Goffstown resident who travels to and through Pinardville regularly in the course of all that I do, and I pay taxes to the town that contribute to the likes of Mast Road and Bartlett Elementary as much as any Pinardville residents' taxes do. What happens or what doesn't happen in Goffstown affects us all, including but not limited to our commute, our taxes, and where we spend our leisure time. It's long been said that Goffstown needs more businesses to help offset our rising taxes. But we've had limited to no success in attracting businesses to our town. And why is that? Pinardville has much of the infrastructure needed for businesses to locate to our town. It has public water and sewer, and it has gas. It has easy access to highways and other towns and cities. But Goffstown's not seen as a go-to kind of place. People don't see Goffstown as a destination place for a night out. Businesses don't see it as a place amenable for their businesses. People will drive through it as they go elsewhere and possibly not even know that they have. It has little to no appeal, and those of us who live in Goffstown have been largely set in our ways, unable or unwilling to see and to change that. What we see on a daily basis has become routine and acceptable. I'm thankful for this team of consultants who came in to view and suggest ways to improve upon what we have, ways to attain our goals, especially those of bringing in businesses. They're experienced, educated, and an objective group of professionals, and I support Plan Pinardville. I know there are aspects of the plan that have not been liked, but I encourage the committee not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. Bill Wright made some very wise comments in the meeting on August 13th. He said you have to decide if you're trying to create character or a parking lot. If you lapse back into conventional thinking and leave it like it is, it will keep creating the same results. If you want to develop character, what you are regulating can create that character. I know last week's meeting was about the code, but this statement applies to the plan as well. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. The plan doesn't support or advocate seizing of property. The examples in the plan are just that, examples and ideas of what can be done. They're not required to be developed. Cody's Corner, an example from the plan, is just an example. That idea can be used anywhere or nowhere. The ideas are there to help improve Pinardville as property owners come to the town with their application. With newly implemented guidelines and zoning ordinances, changes can be made over time that will benefit all of us. This conceptual plan can bring character to Pinardville as it's implemented over the years. It will draw businesses here as they see the town is committed. There are many great ideas contained within the plan, and again, I caution you using Bill Wright's analogy. Sometimes when you pull one thread in a garment, a whole lot of things can go wrong. The hardest part is to realize how changes will affect the rest. That statement, too, applies to zoning as well as to the entire plan. And I hope that in disregarding the CD3 and Campus SD that you didn't already pull one of those threads. Many of the committee members are not familiar with our current zoning ordinances. And even though the end result might have been the same, I think it would have been best and more objective to keep it there while the entire character-based code was presented and during the course of the 30 days the committee has to consider the code. Then a more objective and educated decision could be made. I am a member of the zoning board. We see so many requests from residents who want to do something on their property, a driveway, a deck, a porch, a shed, for example, yet they need a variance or a special exception. Pinardville is unique from the remainder of the town. The lots are different. Their density is different. Some changes in the ordinances would make it easier and less costly for them to make those changes to their property. I'm not saying to provide carte blanche, but specific changes that could make things easier on the applicant, that don't waste the time of the board and town staff, would benefit us all. Plan Pinardville isn't just about bringing business to Goffstown. It's about creating character and identity for Pinardville. It's a unique area which can be enhanced with a sense of community. It's about making the process easier for applicants to use their own property. It's about improving traffic and creating more and better access to public spaces. It's about making Pinardville, especially, a go-to place for businesses, individuals, and families, residents and non-residents alike. And it won't be done overnight. It takes time. But one step at a time, it can be done. So I encourage you to support the plan and to recommend it to the planning board. And please consider your choices and actions carefully because they affect all of us, not just Pinardville.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Give our secretary a moment to get herself situated.
I will. And it's a tough one, so I'll give you all kinds of time. My name is Alice Cuccetti, and I live on Fairview Street in Pinardville. Cuccetti.
Thank you.
I've been a resident of Fairview Street for 45 years. And I really am a little offended to think that somebody thinks they can create character in Pinardville that already exists. A building is not going to create character. We have that. And as far as growth, when I moved into Pinardville 45 years ago, there was nothing. There was Lemon's Market, and I think Paul Smith's drugstore. And it has grown and developed to fit the needs of the people of our community. Our community doesn't need to be a destination. You asked about how people, what do people do when they come to Pinardville? When people come to visit me, we share our life. We share what we have. We share our neighbors. We share what we do. We go to Ollie's. We love Ollie's. That's a wonderful place. We need anything for the house, we go to Auburn's. When I was a young woman, when I first moved here, I had 2 children, and shortly thereafter, christened my new house with another baby. So I had 3 daughters, and I used to say, if I had a grocery store other than Lemon's, because that was, high price. It was like a convenience store almost, but they were great people. But I always thought, if I had a bank, I've already got the pharmacy, I've got a store to buy. If I have a bank, I'll never have to leave. And I didn't. I don't even remember the name of the bank now. The first bank that went in a little, it was a trailer. And I thought, oh my God, I am in heaven. And I enjoy the community, and I've watched it grow. I've watched the children that have gone through the schools, and I've taught at church. I've raised my family. My kids have got children. They come. This is a town. It's a little bedroom community. I know we're part of Goffstown. We're happy to be. We participate. We vote. We care about what's going on out here. My husband and I drive the back roads of Goffstown all the time because we love it. I'm still finding things on the back roads of Goffstown that I didn't know existed. But I'm just thinking, if we're going to try to, how do you make Pinardville better? I'm a person who thinks people are important. I don't see that we have a whole lot of room to add any new businesses. And I'd like to think that right now, I was at the other meeting, and I hope that I can talk about what happened. But they were talking about how we stack up against other towns as far as other cities, ratio between residents and business. And we're very low on the business side, and I understand that. But I'd like to know what's the ratio between Goffstown Center and Pinardville. I think we carry the bulk of that 7%, and we happily do it. But everybody in Goffstown, where do they shop? They come to Pinardville. Do they want a grocery store out there? Well, encourage that. There's not enough room left in Pinardville to really expand the way you think we can expand. And I hate to see the fabric of a wonderful town with so much character and so much history lost for my grandchildren and your grandchildren. It's been good. We've watched it grow. And I think we should just let it continue at its own pace.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else? Last chance. In that case, I will close public comment, and the committee will go back to working on the changes to the document.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Do we want, I know Mr. Burt brought up a question for Mr. Carson. I don't remember what the question was. Do we want Mr. Carson, Greg Carson, to address anything else that John Burt had brought up?
Mr. Carson is standing right behind you. Do you feel
Everybody's
you
leaving,
have,
Brian.
do you feel you need to respond to anything?
Not unless there was a specific issue that, somebody had, I don't remember what.
It wasn't a major issue.
Yeah, I don't think it was much of a
it
question.
It wasn't really a question, yeah, it was more of a
about
statement.
making changes, overruling a tie or making changes to the plan. Whether HUD can make those changes to the plan and overrule what we're putting forward.
And I think he's already answered that several
You
times.
could always rule, you can never, disprove a negative, but I can't imagine the secretary or anybody at HUD, being so involved in the details of the plan that they would come to overrule or make any changes to the plan. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I won't, officially, I will not be even given a copy of this plan. It will be between, it'll be on your shelf, not mine.
For example, he said, we put that shall not be done by eminent domain. HUD can come in and then strike that out, overrule it. That was his
He also talked about it going to the courts, so it won't go to the courts unless somebody presents a suit.
Correct. And
And
as
I
I
had
said,
asked that of you.
I said, even if, okay, in the fantasy land that, HUD would come in and say, oh, well, we didn't like that, so we're going to tell you to change, we're going to overrule what your plan says. You never have to implement the plan. You could always go to federal court and say HUD has no authority to do that, which you would win, and HUD would not be able to, come in and change your plan because that's not the way that the system works. So it's, like I said, I can't disprove a negative, but I cannot conceive of any time that HUD has come in to tell any city or town, even attempted to tell them that you have to overrule, that they're going to come in and overrule what the plan is. Like I said, this plan is, I'm sure it'll be filed someplace, at New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, and then ultimately go to record storage someplace. So technically, may HUD get a copy of this plan somewhere down the road? Yeah, but I don't think anybody will be reviewing it, even so.
Thank you.
I would make one editorial statement though, and just say that I'm hoping that with all of this that you're able to at least find some value of going through the exercise, and that hopefully some of the plan will be helpful. As you know, with the new workforce housing law here in New Hampshire, if you don't have a plan, workforce housing is going to end up wherever a developer buys property and puts it in. So I would suggest, and I'm saying this from a town, a guy who worked on my town plan for decades on this, have a plan so that you know where you want to put things, because when the court, as Representative Burt said, when the court decides where it's going to be, that's where it's going to be. So try and get as much value out of the exercise. I would also say you might want to go back and talk to the folks at New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and look at, timetables, deliverables, things like that, because I'm pretty sure they're very flexible and be willing to work with you if you decide you need more time or something like that. So I think that would be a much better result, and maybe put the brakes on everything and be a little bit slower and give people a chance to actually have a little more input. So just a suggestion. So, but I know New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority will be very cooperative in working something out. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And you know how to get a hold of us if we need any more information. So good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Shall we go back to where we were before we left off? And
I actually, Rosemary, wanted to see if, I know that we're going to have to make a lot of word changes now because I agree with you. Should we also plan, I don't think we can do it all tonight if we're going to.
Well, Cheryl, you're reading my mind.
Something-
Our problem
we're on
is,
page 3 or whatever, and there's a lot now with taking out that statement to get rid of mixed use, and that's going to take us a lot of time.
but our problem is that this is scheduled to go before the planning board in 3.5 weeks.
Okay.
You see what our problem is?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Now, I'm willing to come back at another date to finish this up,
I am too.
but do we really have the time to do that is my question.
But can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I know I've come late, I haven't been here much lately, so, here I am, checking all this out, listening, people stopping by the garage all the time, talking to me about this whole thing. So, when I signed up for this, I didn't really sign up for it, someone asked me to be on an advisory board to look at Pinardville. I said, that sounds like pretty good. It's a pretty good idea, my dad built his place, I own it now. I own a pretty good piece of, commercial property in Pinardville, and I'm impacted greatly by this, from what I can see. and I'm holding off my comments until I really look into it. Everybody thinks I agree with this whole thing. I don't agree with all of it. Some of it. I'm not really sure yet. But everybody's talking about, us killing this thing in this committee. I mean, I thought we were just an advisory committee. I mean, this whole grant that's written out, that's put through all this, I mean, I knew nothing about that stuff when I got on this thing. I thought I was going to look at it and just see what's going on. And, as I've talked to Brian before, the picture that is here which is my urban development, it doesn't seem to work for my property. So I have a problem with that, But as far as killing it, do we have the authority just to kill this in the committee before it goes to the planning board?
Personally, I don't believe we do.
Right.
The-
So
the
I would just like to put that. I mean, do we have that? Because everybody says, you guys kill it. It's like, well, can we kill it?
I don't believe
And would we want to kill
It's
it?
an advisory board only.
That's what I thought.
Like you said.
And the Board of Selectmen is who made the contract with New Hampshire Housing
So we
Finance
have-
Authority. They, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I believe they are already seeking legal counsel as to whether or not this process can be stopped, and if so, what kind of repercussions are forthcoming as a result.
Or what steps do you have to do in order to, not have repercussions?
So, that is in the hands of the Board of Selectmen, not us.
But even before we do that, once again, people are sitting here saying, we want you to squash it.
I don't think we can.
We can't.
Well, not up to us.
So can
I
we
don't
get the
think this
information out?
committee
Because
can.
as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Pinardville resident, I have a business in town. I'm just here just to kind of see what's going on, advise, and try to get some information out. And it just seems like there's a lot, it's not, I wouldn't say false information, but people, thinking that we have us here, Goffstown, Pinardville residents, I say I'm from Pinardville, I don't care, if Norm says he's from Goffstown, I grew up in Pinardville, I've been a Pinardville boy my whole life. I'm okay with that. But do we have that authority?
Well, we are going to vote whether or not to recommend it to the planning board, correct? That is what, we will do that.
Either way.
But if we say no, we're going to do it anyway.
The plan will still end up at the planning board.
There you go. So we don't really have any
with a
authority to do any of that.
recommendation, yea or nay, from this committee.
Exactly.
So
It doesn't really matter. So we
Well,
just
it does,
advise
I
it,
think
correct?
it does.
Well, he's
This
just saying, if
committee-
we say no, we don't want
No,
to
I'm
give it to
not
him.
saying it stops it, but it shows the planning board, okay, 4 said no, 3 said yes, 4 said yes, 3 said no. So there was not, it shows that there was some controversy,
Even if
they
it-
might want to
but
know
even
what
if we
that
all
was.
say no, it's still going to go.
Yeah, but that behooves them to know that we as a committee are unsure.
We have to come
We're
up
just
with
advising. That's all we're doing.
But the plan has got to go forward to the planning board.
We have to come up with a plan.
We have a
That I
time
agree with.
requirement to
Right.
get things done, to get the
According to
plan
the
done.
grant, yeah.
We have to get this plan done. We have to work to change the things that we have to change. We have to complete the cycle. We met, we had a plan, we vote what we want, and then we send it forward, okay?
Correct.
So that way, that
We're
probably
covered.
fulfills our legality of
Right.
having a plan and
That's it.
getting it done.
Right.
Right.
That fulfills our commitment to the contract.
Right.
And now
And
we,
it's then up to the planning board to either say yay or nay.
And it's the board here that's
And
going to say,
should
here's
the-
our plan.
Should the planning board say yay, then we continue on with the ordinances.
Go on.
Should the planning board say nay,
It's done.
then that's it.
Our work is done.
But that fulfills our commitment as an advisory board?
Yes.
Yes.
no, for the contract, well, for the
Contract.
For the
contract.
grant,
I
yeah.
never signed a contract.
No, you didn't, but the select.
The Board of
They
Selectmen
did.
did.
With stipulations in it, Billy.
When they got that $50,000 grant, they got there's a contract.
It's a
I
catch,
have it right here.
I
it's a
understand that,
catch-22
but-
So we
situation.
need to, it says that we need to come through with a plan.
That's all
And when, the value,
Correct.
And what can a plan be? It
But it's
doesn't have to be all this.
right, well, it doesn't. We
recommend it.
can,
Manipulate it.
we can manipulate, we can change it. I don't like the word.
We can
We can change it.
put forth whatever plan we want to put forth.
Right.
But we got to come forth with a plan.
With a
And
plan.
someday when they say, well, let's do some work, in front of your place, or in front of my place, or in front of anybody's place in Pinardville, and they say, but do you have a study? We need a study. And all of a sudden, there's no study. But now, we have a study. Now we have a plan. And so there are some valuable things about this process that we're going through that maybe it isn't going to work. Maybe it won't make it through to the end. But there's some valuable things that we've all gone through. And the community, I think, is going to be better for it to at least explore this and don't try to end this anytime before the right time.
So I think the information we should give to the public, because there's a lot of concern, is that, we're just part of a process of looking at a plan that may or may not be implemented.
Correct.
Correct. That's it.
And that's the message we've been trying to get across.
Because, like I said, my personal concern is that this doesn't work for me.
That's it.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
That's all. Because I'm a big property owner.
It doesn't have to be implemented if you don't want your portion of anything to be implemented. If your neighbors don't want to implement their portion of it, then they don't ask. People come to us and ask us to do something on their property, and then we say, okay, here's what we've come up with as ideas. Do you want to do this? This is part of the plan. If not, at least here's the code requirement that here's what you would be stuck required to do, but you don't necessarily even have to do what the plan shows. It just, maybe it shows an alleyway, or maybe it shows a proposed street, or a possible street, or whatever we're calling it. Those things don't have to happen. I don't know how many times we have said this, but every time a property owner looks at this thing,
well, I'm a property owner.
Exactly.
And I look at this and I say, really?
Right.
That's what I say.
But the other part of
looking at this picture.
The other part of the plan is the workforce housing law that passed a few years ago, I believe, when we need to have a plan for HUD for workforce housing, because they will come in and some developer that says you don't have enough percentage here, and now we can say, well, yes, we do. We have it, and here are the numbers that show we have enough.
We may have fulfilled that already in Goffstown, I don't know.
Well, nobody seems to know
Exactly,
that, so
nobody
we
has
need that
researched
answer,
that.
because if we get sued because a big developer wants to do it, and we don't have a plan or an answer.
Well, but you're also going on then that this is going to pass.
No, but we have the plan.
Yeah, but if the plan doesn't pass, it's really not a plan.
Yes, it's a plan.
It won't, well, if it doesn't pass the planning board, no, then it's dead.
Well, it's a plan, but we fulfilled our obligation.
I understand fulfilling the obligation. I understand that. I understand that part. But you're going further, saying that we got this is a plan. Well, it's not really a plan.
Not until it goes through the planning board, no.
Well, not until it actually goes through.
We got to fulfill our obligations of getting it done, doing the correct thing, and then send it forward.
I understand.
And if we don't have a plan in place, when developer wants to build workforce housing, and then that's when it can get very expensive.
But don't we already have zoning laws for that? Besides that,
for which they have to come.
Our zoning got us where we are today. Our current zoning got us where we are today. It's allowed for additional workforce housing recently to be built, and
Yeah, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah. We have to figure out, do we want more or do we want less or whatever. I don't know that this plan will really get into that much detail about that, but,
It's what we can afford.
We
can't build workforce housing with affordable housing for people, okay? And they bring in a lot of kids, and our school rate goes up and our taxes go up. We can't live that way.
If you don't have the numbers to back that up, you may have to live that way. I'm not sure how this works. Manchester's resisting it right now. I mean, the mayor is publicly speaking out about 200 more refugees coming in, for instance, that he doesn't have the housing for.
And we don't have the space for them either, which is part of the problem.
Let's get down to working on what
Right,
we're here
but
for.
We just need to be proactive on this issue, that's all.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Selectman representative. I'm not hearing a whole lot of enthusiasm about this, either on this board, on the selectmen's board. How did we get to the point where we wanted to go down this road if we're not? I thought there was a concern that Pinardville residents didn't have enough emphasis on their community and things along those lines, but how do we get to this point where I'm just hearing a lot of talk about how do we let this thing die in the vine, basically, you know.
We're in the process of looking that information up now with Sue, and hopefully next week we'll have an answer for that at our selectmen's meeting. Well, it won't be next week because there are only 3. It'll be the week after that. We will not discuss this issue with just 3 selectmen next week. It'll be not the following week, because the following week is a holiday, but we're seeking advice.
Legal
Right,
advice.
But I'm asking, how do we get to the point where we have a committee, we have a grant to study?
Because
this
honestly, I
incident
think
that
when the
and
committee-
there doesn't seem to be any enthusiasm for it
when-
at all.
But there was originally.
But where is that?
Where's the enthusiasm?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I think the damage has been done. Damage control was not done well enough to stop the derailment of the program. There's been so much negativity in this thing put forward that I think the negativity has overwhelmed the good part of this. And when and if this was all put together, as I remember it, it was more for economic development committee and more for bringing businesses to Pinardville. There was no talk ever of residential and things like that. It was more for the business and not residents. And when we got it, it snowballed and came full circle the other way, when we had more residents, I think, than industrial or commercial parts of it.
And when you say we, you mean the Board of Selectmen.
Right. And who knows how much other federal money we've accepted over the past years
Other areas,
that we may be indebted to, that we haven't paid back, where we haven't
and-
we haven't even started to
And I kinda
fulfill that
echo-
obligation yet.
I kind of echo what Bill says. I'm very frustrated. I know what I want to do, but I think the best alternative right now for this program is to let it run its course. If we do nothing at the end, we've met all the objectives, we've met everything, I think everything will be fulfilled. And if the people in the town of Goffstown vote it down, it has gone that far, and we just move on and keep going.
So be it.
We have met our part. The planning board has met their part, and everybody involved has met their part. And now the people of Goffstown have spoken, and I'll tell you one thing that I don't like about this plan right now is the entire town of Goffstown is voting on it, and I hate to segregate Pinardville and Goffstown, but this is a Pinardville issue. Let the Pinardville people vote on it, and let the Pinardville people say what really has to be said. Period. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I do agree with that.
Thank you.
I'm not very enthused about putting more of my volunteer time on this, if that's basically the attitude. And I'm wondering why we're going to take this time to go through this document again and take the effort to edit it and that, when I don't see that anybody from the public or others are offering specifics that we can even address to even make this acceptable to them. So I would recommend that we've already gone through it as a committee, put it up to the planning board pretty much as is. Maybe if there's a few specific edits we can come up with, fine, but I don't think we need to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and take that effort and put it into it when I'm not seeing that it's going to result in much support. And let the planning board chew on it and see where it goes from there. But why, it's 10 o'clock, why have another meeting or go on some more and spend time on this when the support's not there for it?
Bill?
Well, I would just say that, at the beginning of this, we all go into it with eyes wide open. And, I've never been through this process before. So I don't think it's always wasted time. I think that it's just, as things have evolved, maybe this hasn't gone the way we thought it might go. Don't know. I know you spent a lot more time than I have. At the beginning, I spent some time. But I just don't think it's ever really wasted, because I think it's really just a discussion. So, have we learned things about what our community is? I think we have. And I hope that people just don't look at this and just say, oh, this is just a bad idea. Well, we don't really know what the idea was until we see the idea.
Right.
So when we first started this, we're all, hey, we're gung-ho, we're going to see what's going on with Pinardville, and maybe it just didn't work out the way we thought it might work out. But we're not really there yet, I don't think. The major part of the community may think we're not there, but maybe we can look at some stuff. Like, when I voice my concern, I'm just voicing my concern. I'm just letting it be out there that I have some concerns about how this may go. That doesn't mean that the whole thing might be good or bad. I don't really know yet. So I think if you just keep open dialogue and if there's something that we can give them that might work, so be it. I hope I'm making sense with this.
And if we can't give them that, then the possibility is still to continue.
But I hope nobody
through.
looks at us like we're wasting our time or we're throwing something down someone's throat. I mean, we're just advising. I mean, we're people in the community. I'm not a professional. I'm not an elected official. I'm just Bill Surratt, who has a place in town, has lived in town my whole life, and I was interested in it. And when I hear terminology of, Pinardville's ugly, Pinardville's this, I had a discussion with Kyle Quarum. It's like, my father came in and he built his monstrosity, one piece at a time, because that's just how he could do it.
It's not ugly.
Well, I don't think
Pinardville's
it's ugly.
at all.
I don't think it's ugly at all. But my father built his little garage when he had enough money, and then in '67, he tells me the stories, and we didn't have any money, and he built another little section, had a donut shop, he had a hardware store, and then guess what? He paid that off, and then he went back and bought the piece from Ferretti, and he put up a little warehouse, and he put up another warehouse. So that's just kind of how it went. I mean, was it planned? It was planned the best way he could so that he could make a living and raise his family. That's how I look at it.
That's the way most towns
And that
and
was his
cities are
opportunity.
planned.
Firewise Market across the street, Mike Janess did the same thing. Pizza Market did the same thing. So yeah, maybe it's piecemeal, maybe it's here, maybe it's there, and maybe this is a better idea at some point. But as far as my property is concerned, I probably won't do anything with this because I'm still paying the thing off and trying to earn a living. Now, the next guy that buys it, maybe 20 years down the road, maybe 30, he may be subject to these rules, but I'm not right now. I don't think I ever will be. So if anybody thinks things are going to change very swiftly, I would say as long as my place is rented, I'm not doing a thing. As long as Pizza Market is busy, he's not doing a thing. As long as Gamache has his places rented, he's not tearing down his buildings. As long as the lube place is fixing cars and lubing and doing his car wash, he's probably not changing either. So, the conception, everybody, it's just going to change all of a sudden. I just think that that's false.
It is false.
Now, can it look like this somewhere down the road? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't.
This is a conceptual plan.
Right.
Which may or may not come to fruition at any point in time down the road. It's certainly not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So I just, back to this, I just really don't hope that you don't think you're wasting your time. I just think it's just part of the process.
I'm starting to feel that way.
Yeah, but as we all know,
We've drawn people into the process. People are active now. They weren't showing up to meetings before.
I don't hear any support for it.
Well, I don't either, but that may be the case. Maybe that's the thing. If they don't want it, they're still speaking out.
Doesn't mean our efforts are wasted. I don't think our efforts are wasted.
You don't hear any support because people look like, what am I going to lose here, okay? You got to look at the concept further out, okay? And I think if we would have stuck more to the commercial end of it, okay, and say, well, right now will be a two-phase program. We'll first work on the commercial end, and then after that, maybe we can do something else. But by putting both of them together, I think it was a very
what if could have. I don't know. I just think it's a process. It's a big deal.
You also have to realize that out of the 20-some-odd people that have been showing up at the meeting, that's probably not even 10% of the residents of Pinardville.
But that's what we're responding to.
That's what we're reacting to.
But they're all different every time, though. They're not always the same people.
That's what we're reacting to, and that's what we should react to.
Yeah, we should listen to them. Absolutely.
And that's what we have been paying attention to. Negative comments are not bad.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying we'll get their support, though. And I'm hearing kill it, kill it, kill
and
it.
we don't know, but I think we have to finish the process, which means we have to continue to pare down this plan so that we have a plan that we support going forward to the planning board. And then it's up to them to make the decision whether it'll continue on from there or whether it will die on the vine. So having said that, let's get to it.
If the selectman kills this project before it even gets to a vote at the planning board, then it will be a waste of time, in my mind.
I agree.
If we take it through the process at least and allow it to play out like what Mark has been suggesting, then it will have at least been an attempted go at the deal.
Yes,
and even
I
if
agree.
And even if it fails, it's work that we will have done that can be, looked at in the future and brought up again and say, how could we have done something different for Pinardville? Maybe we need to, change this plan up to make it more something that people can accept and be happy with. And, I've heard some people say that they tried 7 times before things get actually adopted. And so, maybe it takes a few tries to get through it, but I don't.
We don't know.
want to see us.
Just let the people of Pinardville know, I mean, their voice is being heard. I mean, so.
Yeah.
That's how government works.
That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
They're
That's a
showing
good
up
thing.
and we're listening.
Yeah.
And we're taking it seriously.
And I will say that if the Board of Selectmen, and Mark is here to hear this, as is Nick, if the Board of Selectmen does decide to do away with this committee, then I will feel that any work that we have put into this will have been wasted effort. If we are allowed to continue to go through the process, and leave it up to the planning board, then I'll feel like we've done something that is worthwhile. Whether the planning board agrees with us or not remains to be seen. But I think we should at least be allowed to get that far.
I agree with you. And because there's still work to be done on the Mass Road corridor.
Yes.
For planning for the future, and that's what the planning
Yes.
board does.
So let's get to it, kids.
All right.
But we're past our 2.5-hour deadline that we
Yes.
always
Plan another
promised.
meeting, or?
So, is everybody willing to come back?
To see you, of course.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm willing
you're,
to come
You're
back,
a love,
yes.
Dick, thank you. What do we have available for times to come back?
Well,
I mean, Brian Wright doesn't have to be online or whatever for that meeting, I don't think, if he's not available, if he needs to be.
the only thing that I'm just
Delighted that you're
trying to figure out is, we've got obviously you said, Rosemary, already, that we've got the planning board meeting that we
On
want to
September
put it
12th,
on.
it's 3.5 weeks
Well,
away.
If we delay this today, then I think we'll end up having to delay planning board because.
Is that a problem?
Well, not necessarily. We just have to come up with a reschedule and.
And also, so we do what they want to do.
Our planning consultant, may not be available for whatever date that we decide and wouldn't be there. And I'm not saying that's, again.
Brian, I don't think we need a planning consultant to sit here and do what we do now.
No. I'm talking about for presenting at the planning board.
Well, why don't
If
we
we change the date on planning board, then I don't know what date they're gonna be available for.
Well, what if we met next week and we could possibly get through it if we had one meeting where we just did that and didn't take public comment, for 2.5 hours? We know what we want to
We don't make an open meeting, it's a workshop
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
We close the doors, we sit in here and we get what's gotta get done, and then we move on to the next.
Because we know now exactly what we're looking to remove. We can all be ready, having gone through it with what we've found, and we'll just bing, 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 bing through it instead of wondering. We've pretty much decided to take out mixed use.
That works for me.
And I don't think that it'll take, I think that could do it. We could still make our meeting to the planning board. I think we can still do it.
Well, the only thing I'm not sure about is if we have to have the proposed plan available, because when we put out a notice to the public, here's a public hearing, we have to, I think, have the proposed plan ready before that.
So if we have a meeting next week, we have to have it ready for September 12th, as I heard, right?
Yeah, well, I was planning on putting out the notice, actually, getting it done tomorrow if we had a vote from the committee tonight. Because it takes me 2 days to get it from, sending it to be in the paper. And so, that's 2 days worth of notice. Plus then we have to have it, I think at least 10 days prior to our meeting with 2 days clear. So you gotta have 12 days from the meeting, which is the
August 31st.
Yeah,
We're
August
talking
31st.
about, we're talking about the 12th,
Right,
right?
so 10 days
So-
prior is August 31st.
August 31st, plus then 2 days for the notice, so back to the
28th,
28th.
29th, 28th, say.
So if we want to meet prior to that,
So if we meet on the 27th, and like we said, we close the doors and it's a closed meeting to the public.
Yes, because it's filmed, because it is filmed.
Do we already have a meeting on the 27th?
No. No, that, we were going to do tonight's meeting on the 27th, and we changed it.
But Brian Wright couldn't do it at that time.
We can have a closed meeting, you.
Well, it's
you
taped for television, it's televised.
But I can ask you, why do we have to have a closed meeting if there's just no public comment?
It's
don't-
just
we don't
an
need-
open meeting with no public comment.
Right.
Right, we need.
But that's what
she was
that's
trying
what
to
I meant
say.
by closed, was that there's no public comment.
I heard the
session.
doors get closed, and that's, I think we should
That
have.
was an expression.
You know, just
I
people
know.
show up.
People show up,
See
people.
what's going on,
Yeah,
absolutely.
people should be part of the
I
part
don't know
of
if it makes a difference, but I'm not available next week.
Well, thanks, I'll take it.
Makes a difference.
Donations, gratefully accepted.
Yeah, I think in order to do it, we also have to have a quorum of the committee to be able to make,
Vote.
you know, to vote on what.
Who-
Tonight, we have a quorum, which, you know, we have a couple of members, actually, Bill Furlong, and,
Is he still on? I thought he said he resigned, no?
well, in talking to Derek, you know, they're still technically part of the charter, which the charter said 14 members, and so if we've got 14 members, even though they're not coming or whatever, they're, you know, those slots.
Well,
are
we've
there.
got one
So we
resignation.
still have to have at least
We have 2
seven.
resignations.
No, we've got one resignation.
Mike Lawler wasn't attending.
Mike was not a voting member, he was an alternate.
Oh, but Bill Furlong has also told me that he doesn't.
All right, so-
Because St. A's was removed from the whole thing, he doesn't feel like needs
All
to
right,
be
so
here
we're
anymore.
down to 12 members.
So what would a quorum
So-
be then?
6,
No, seven.
7.
So, how many
1,
here would
2,
come?
3, 4, 5, 6,
got 8.
7, 8.
We've got 8 here. How many will be able to come next week? We commit to coming, so we can make sure we have the
What
quorum to
night?
get this done.
So why would it be so horrible to have it, like, to have it delayed 1 month? Would it be? Would it not be?
It
Instead of
just
just,
throws
you know, once
everything
again, you know, everybody's, you know,
Again.
what I'm hearing is, you know, we're all just pushing this thing through. I mean, what would be the,
Scheduling.
what would be the,
There's-
what would be the issue, just, you know, a couple weeks?
The only thing that I could see would be is if Brian Wright couldn't
Couldn't make the presentation to the planning
Which-
board.
In the end, you know, that's part of the contract that they would do that, but,
Is it a necessity?
So that contract counts, but
it
that
was,
contract
it was,
doesn't.
it was
No,
part of the
it's-
contract that he make a presentation on tonight thing too, and
Just didn't work
for
out
us
for
to
him.
make a recommendation, and, you know, in talking to him, he felt that there wasn't really much else to present to the committee, because we've already sort of gone through the
Right.
whole thing. So, whether or not we need, I mean, it's a whole different ballgame at the planning board, though, because they haven't had all these presentations, they haven't heard necessarily exactly
Well,
what.
the planning board is meeting on the 12th of September. When are they meeting in October?
Here, John, I got a calendar for you. If you need to look at any dates.
Yeah, thanks.
Because I don't have a problem with slowing this down and
Get more
really,
information?
really taking more time to,
Get some more information.
Planning board meets in October on the 10th and the 24th.
what happened?
He became mini-me.
Did you break the chair?
These free chairs.
Free chairs. Government surplus.
That's why they gave them to
Government
us,
surplus,
right?
yeah.
So October is the 10th and the
10th
24th.
and the 24th,
Oh, they're
okay. So if we were to
comfortable.
aim for the 10th of October instead of the 12th of September, whether TPUDC was able
That'd be
to
okay.
be available or not,
There's time in the overall schedule to do that, because we don't have to have any zoning stuff to.
until
the
December.
planning board until December, so, I mean,
And it's possible that come whatever date in October, the planning board gets this, that they're gonna put the kibosh on it anyway.
The zoning will be.
And then the zoning will be
Yeah.
a moot point, but let's hope that that's not the case, that we get this down to a point where the planning board will accept it.
When will we have it at the planning board?
well, she was just saying, you know, suggesting October 10th for the plan, instead of September 12th.
Well,
That's delaying it by a month.
for the plan,
For the plan, and then the planning board gets it after.
the planning board will get it on October 10th
So when's the next meeting?
instead of on September 12th.
Now, if the planning board looks at it and says, well, we need more time, then they aren't gonna have as much time per se as what, I was trying to build in some time for,
Yeah.
the planning board gets it. They may say, well, we want a month to decide, to look this over before we make a determination on this.
But that doesn't necessarily stop us from continuing on and working on ordinances.
The planning
Although
board's
that
not
would
gonna,
be a waste of time in
the
a way.
planning board's not gonna work this. They're gonna get it, it's gonna come from this committee to them, ready for them to make a decision on
Now,
it.
the other
Right.
thing.
They're
the
not
other
gonna be changing things in.
Correct.
The only other variable is if you find out from the selectmen that we've met our obligation, we won't have to do anything anymore.
A few things.
The other thing to consider is during the same time, we're supposed to be, and I was supposed to have gotten a doodle poll out to everyone for the code meetings, and I didn't do that today yet, but.
A what? A doodle poll?
Well,
That's a
it's
calendar,
just,
it's a computer calendar.
Oh, okay.
it's a-
You're not on computers, so
No,
don't
I'm
worry
like,
about
what?
it.
It's a calendar request for when people are available to do
Oh, okay.
meetings, to review the code.
Okay.
And that was supposed to have gone out, and I still have to do that. But that's also gonna be during the same time frame because we still have to be working towards that as well.
Was it impossible to hit the 12th at this point, truly impossible, or do we have to make sure that night we get everything done? If we get everything done that night for sure, and we're all prepared and ready, and we go bing, bing, bing through it, can
On the
we
20,
still-
you're talking about on the
next-
27th.
Yes, if we can really get our work done and that's it. Can't we
Everybody-
still
yeah.
stick with the 12th? I
Do it
don't see.
Before the meeting, everybody have it ready.
Yeah, as
to
long as we know
make
what
the
we're looking
changes.
for now, it's very specific, we're focused on what we're looking for, and we should be able to go right through pretty quick, I think, to still meet the 12th. I don't see why that has to change. I think we can do it.
Well, once again, I just think we can be sensitive to, some of the comments we've been getting from
Yeah.
the public, and, maybe you don't have to rush it right through just because we have to get it at that point.
Well, the public
just
doesn't
an
want it
idea.
at all, is the message I'm getting.
Well,
Yeah,
So I
same
don't
here.
think
Maybe at this
that's
point
gonna
they
make-
don't, I don't know, don't know, we don't really know.
But the grant does have deadlines.
This spring.
Yeah. The grant does have deadlines.
The driving
they have to meet.
factor is the grant and the time limitations and what the selectmen said. Those are the two variables that you have to watch out for.
All right, let me make a suggestion.
Okay.
We come together on the 27th for those of us who are available. Andy, you said you're not available. We do what we can do. If we have it ready for September 12th, then it goes forward to the planning board on September 12th. If it's not ready by September 12th, then we push it to October 10th.
Yeah.
And we take it from there.
Yeah.
And that's
Does-
August
Need a quorum
27th.
for that meeting?
August 27th
That's the
for the
time.
meeting, which is next Tuesday night.
Because we're gonna have to vote on it up to kick it up, you need a quorum.
And we don't have any, alternates to it.
No, well, we did. We had Mike, who was an alternate to Tony, but
And now we have an opening for an alternate?
we have an opening for a member.
We have an opening for a member.
The only reason we had an alternate in the first place
We have an
was
opening.
because Tony was not able to join us for several of the first several meetings. Now, at this late date to bring somebody else
Yeah.
in,
I know, but
I wouldn't necessarily advocate for that.
Couldn't catch up in time.
No.
Well, Andy can't make it, but if the other 7 of us agree that we will be here, we can do it. We just
If-
need 7.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
I'll make it.
All right.
yeah.
Looks like we're meeting again on the 27th. That'll be 7 of us.
And read this, mark it up, we'll have it ready, bang, bang.
Yeah, be ready, everybody be ready to go. 'cause
I'll
we know what
send
we're
you
looking for.
the
Right, we can
the
be out
marked
here in
up
an hour.
version that I have that I was prepared to show you tonight.
Yep.
And that's
And that
7
way
PM?
You can see what
Yes.
those comments are.
7 p.m. Is this room available?
I'll have to check on that. I think it probably will be. It's the 4th Tuesday at the night of the month, which I think generally doesn't have any meetings, but
I don't think.
if there are
You've got the computer, look on the calendar.
unscheduled.
Brian looks totally bored in that picture.
Is he still
You
with
fall
us?
asleep there, Brian? Brian.
Smiling there.
You still with us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just sitting there silent sand.
I'm here.
Are you awake?
Well, he looks like he's ready to go off.
Yeah.
What do you think about any of this, Brian? Are you?
I was just waiting for the consultant comment portion of the meeting.
Sorry, too late.
Yeah.
We're going home.
Can't go home yet till we make a motion to adjourn.
Oh my gosh, are we all done? Because I'll motion.
No, he's checking to see if the room is
I'm just
available
kidding.
on Tuesday.
I need to borrow
This isn't probably the last say on everything, but
It is getting a little warm.
okay, the 27th.
Yep,
Shuts off
Looks open.
automatically.
good. Schedule us in. 7 o'clock.
And you're sure you can?
All right.
I'm on vacation next week.
Oh, lucky devil, we won't.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
Bahamas?
Yeah, right.
does our consultant want to say anything before we adjourn?
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night. What I'm actually doing is typing up some notes that I can share with you guys that you can read with a fresh set of eyes at another time.
Okay.
And just to talk about the impacts of the consideration of removing all mentions of residential development of any sort, and also just some words of encouragement and our experience around the country dealing with community input, because I know that it's we have a unique perspective because we get to work all over the country with all kinds of groups, and so I know that a lot of times that committees aren't used to dealing with that, and so I wanted to just share my thoughts with you guys as well. So I'll type something up and send it out at some point.
Terrific.
So I'd have to say this is not all unusual, correct?
No.
Thank you.
No, not at all.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, who wants to make the motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll kill you if you are.
Bye-bye.
Good night, and thank you very much. I'll see you all same place.
Good night and good luck, as they used to say.
but-
You